Hey guys. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Realized His Full Potential. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 7, Tsunade the Terrible. Naruto's grin threatened to split his face in half as he looked down on the perfectly shaped orb of chakra in his hands. He had finally done it. He had completed the rasengan so much sooner than he had anticipated. In a mere 3 weeks he completed a technique that took the Yondaime years to create, and Jiraiya, a legendary shinobi, 3 months with the Yondaime helping him along the way. It went to show how much he could achieve if he just used his head properly. Granted, Jiraiya had given him a few pointers here and there, but even so he couldn't be happier with himself. Still, as great as the achievement was, Naruto felt as though something was missing. Something he couldn't quite grasp yet. What that was, he had no idea. And yet he couldn't shake the thought. What was missing? The damage done to his surrounding area was a testament to the power of the jutsu. It could easily crush boulder and shred thick trees with ease, and yet the feeling in his stomach refused to leave. What was missing? Naruto. In the distance, Naruto saw Shizen running towards him looking distressed. What is it? He was unsure whether they were on first-name terms after the violent altercation a few days ago. Shizen, right? She ignored this. Where is Jiraiya-sama? Shizen looked around as tough, half expecting to see the white mane of the sage sticking out somewhere nearby. Tsunade is in trouble. Naruto's eyes narrowed. What kind of trouble? I haven't seen her since last night. I think she's gone to see Orochimaru to take him up on his offer. Shizen hurriedly revealed. I need to find Jiraiya-sama. He's the only one who can stop her. Where is he? Gritting his teeth, Naruto recalled his run-in with the Snake Fiend and what he had done to Sasuke. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A clone appeared next to him, much to Shizen's surprise, as Naruto addressed his doppelganger. Go find Rasengan. You'll know where to find me, go. The clone didn't need to be told twice and was off in an instant, leaving Naruto to turn to Shizen with a serious expression. I don't know what's going, but I'll help. Shizen nodded with gratitude. You said she went to meet with Orochimaru. Do you know where they were? Somewhere in the outskirts. They didn't discuss a precise location, Shizen informed, perfectly fine with taking Naruto with her on this one. Having seen him take on Tsunade, albeit unsuccessfully, was enough for her to know he would be useful. Let's go. She made to move to take off, but Naruto had other plans. He bit his thumb and went through a string of hand seals so rapidly his hands were blurs. There's no time to manually look. Naruto jumped back and slammed his hand on the ground, forcing enough chakra into the technique to summon his familiar. Kuchios no Jutsu. Poof! A massive pillar of smoke concealed the appearance of Gamahiro. Ribbit! Naruto, long time no see. The toad greeted amiably. Hey, Gamahiro! Naruto greeted, perched on the gargantuan toad's head. I know I'm not supposed to call you for this, but can you give us a ride? A friend of ours is in trouble and we need to find her fast. Ribbit! No problem. A friend of yours is a friend of mine. Hop on, lady! Gamahiro said to Shizen, who looked bewildered but jumped on nonetheless. Naruto pointed ahead. Let's go, Gamahiro! He shouted, and the toad took off with a mighty leap, jumping his into the air, several hundred feet at least, giving them a clear view of the forestry below. Oh, Orochimaru! Tsunade's fist sank through the earth with tremendous power, chakra racing through her fist unleashed with pinpoint accuracy and explosive fury. The earth cracked like porcelain, chunks sticking out immediately as the crack turned into a racing crevice headed for Orochimaru. Haunted by the images of her dead loved ones, Tsunade's fit of rage was accompanied by an animalistic roar. Orochimaru backed off immediately, knowing full well what his irate, former comrade was capable of. She didn't let up though, rushing over to Orochimaru with her arm outstretched to clothesline the serpent, whose head would have surely been severed from his neck had it not been for the combined efforts of his 2 associates, Kabuto and Sasaki. The bespectacled shinobi had rushed over with chakra scalpels, cutting a tendon in Tsunade's arm to weaken her attack considerably, whilst Sasaki launched forward with a downward slash of one of his 4 blades. Orochimaru crashed into the ground, skidding and bounding painfully and coming to a stop in a crouch, whilst Kabuto was on the receiving end of a ribcage-breaking kick and Sasaki's attack was dodged and countered with a head, but that resulted in him crashing through the clearing and into a tree with a painful grunt. Undoubtedly, Tsunade was a force to be reckoned with. Years of inactivity may have taken their toll on her speed and power, but her mind was as sharp as ever despite her years of binge drinking. Green chakra sparked in her hand. The wound she received from Kabuto was healed in a matter of seconds. You shouldn't have come here, Orochimaru. Her voice shook with barely restrained anger. She was looking down into the crevice in the earth, where the sacrificial corpses resembling Nawaki and Dan lied in an undignified heap. First I'm going to kill your lackeys, and then I'm going to take my time ripping you apart. Orochimaru snarled at the notion, face contorted with disgust and rage. You're the one making the mistake, Tsunade. Whilst you wasted your best years away drinking yourself into a stupor, I never stopped fighting. You are no match for me. He bounded forward with amazing speed, regurgitating his blade like he had done with the sacrifices and holding it tightly with his tongue as he lunged like blurry missile of death. Tsunade sidestepped the attack, barely avoiding getting fatally wounded, and retaliated with an upwards kick. Orochimaru dodged it with his superior speed. Clearly he wasn't all talk. The two engaged in the briefest of taijutsu clashes shortly before Orochimaru's henchmen joined in. Tsunade found herself fighting three at the same time. Nonetheless, before long she was overtaking the fight, punching and kicking with increased fury. Even when they outnumbered her, they could not match her strength, not when they were so inept at collaborating their efforts, something they had evidently never had to resort to before. On the receiving end of a crushing right hook to the chest with enough force to break through a boulder, Sasaki was flung backwards once again. Confident he was out for the count, Tsunade was in for a shocking surprise when the 6 feet 6 inches tall swordsman remained standing, skidding back a few feet, but standing nonetheless. What in the world? Kabuto capitalized on her distraction and managed to land a kick on her stomach before retreating a safe distance. It was nothing compared to what she could dish out. So, this is what you've been doing over the years, Orochimaru? Playing God with your followers? You despicable filth! Sasaki had taken the brunt of Tsunade's attack full on but managed to survive the otherwise sure-killing blow due to the fact there were 4 very muscular arms attached to his torso. As sickening as the idea was, the scientist inside Tsunade could not help but be intrigued with the possible explanation for this monstrosity. She banished the thought. This wasn't the time to be admiring her former friend's handiwork. She ought to get done killing him right about now. The defensive cross-shaped guard Sasaki had put up slackened as the lower pair of arms fell, veins popping up in the muscular limbs as they swelled up and grew purple, clearly broken under the brute force of Tsunade's fist. They had taken on most of the attack. Gee! Sasaki looked down to the additional pair of limbs he obviously had not been born with, but rather were the result of Orochimaru's experiments. You broke my arms, bitch, and I'll break your face while I'm at it. Tsunade roared, aiming another devastating punch to the ground. Oh! With Naruto and Shizen, Gamahiro continued to bound forward with vigor, hundreds of feet at a time. Naruto remained perched on his head, scouring the landscape with his eyes. I really should invest in a pair of binoculars, Naruto noted mentally. I have to say, Naruto-kun, I'm amazed you are able to summon a toad of this size. Shizen commented, shouting so he could hear over the booming impact of Gamahiro and the screeching of the wind. She was riding on Gamahiro's shoulder to get a better vantage point. Not many shinobi are capable of a feat like that. And you're so young too. Naruto spared her a glance and gave her a smile. Thanks, he replied. I guess Jiraiya figured I'd be perfect for something like summoning jutsu. I've got more chakra than I know what to do with. Really? I don't feel it, Shizen said, adding, I'm not a sensory type, but I can't feel that much chakra coming from you. Your chakra levels are still higher than mine, but if what you're saying is true, it should be much higher. Why is that? Yeah, I get that a lot. Technically, he had only gotten in twice. Once from a mad scientist with a penchant for beating him with a stick and the other from his sword-wielding teammate Hate. I never really thought about it, but I guess my body just naturally knows how to suppress my chakra. Jiraiya's been teaching me how to make proper use of it. Oh, having answered her question, Naruto turned to Gamahiro. Talking about summoning jutsu reminded him of something. We might run into some snakes, Gamahiro-chan. Naruto shouted as Gamahiro bounded onwards. Are you up for a fight? Naruto grinned as the massive toad gave a determined nod of his head. Always! Gamahiro croaked loudly, bounding onwards even faster at the prospect of battle. I sensed them ahead, Naruto. Naruto frowned with confusion. Had he heard that right? You can sense them, Gamahiro-chan? Naruto shouted his question. Gamahiro nodded midair as they neared the enemy. What, you're a sensor toad or something? Naruto fought the urge to laugh at the notion. It just sounded funny. It's called senjutsu, Naruto, Gamahiro replied. But more on that later, we're getting closer. Prepare yourselves. Oh, Tsunade was down to a knee to catch her breath, a bead of sweat rolling down the side of her face. She scowled. Her years of inactivity were really showing. Scrapes and bruises adorned her arms and legs. She bled from a few shallow cuts here and there. In particular, the cut on her forehead was a source of irritation. Her greatest annoyance at the moment, however, was the fact she knew she wouldn't have made the careless mistakes that got her these injuries a few years ago. She glared at the three in front of her, all of them sporting several injuries of their own, in particular Kabuto, who had taken the brunt of most of her attacks head-on, though he was able to heal his injuries whenever Tsunade was fighting Orochimaru and Sasaki. Still, she had the upper hand for now. They were too cautious to get within striking distance. Not even the cocky swordsman dared to attack on his own. After all, she only had to land one well-placed punch to end the fight and his life. You've made a grave mistake, Tsunade, Orochimaru reminded her for what seemed the 100th time. Clearly the prospect of missing out on recruiting her rubbed him the wrong way. She spat blood to her right with a hateful glare at her former teammate. Unfortunately for you, Tsunade, I did not come unprepared to deal with you. Kabuto looked to his master and nodded. Tsunade could see the resentment in his eyes as he hesitated for a moment before going through a string of seals to use whatever trump card they had stored just in case. Chakura Mezu. Tsunade's eyes narrowed and just as quickly widened as Kabuto ran the chakra scalpel down his torso, cleanly cutting through his clothes and the layers of his skin on his chest. And just like that, Tsunade was 20 years old again. On the battlefield. Dan's bloodied body appeared in front of her. He gasped for air and gurgled blood. Her hands drenched in his blood. Tsunade's memories came back to haunt her with a greater fury, gripping and unrelenting. Dan! No, don't die on me now! Not now! Dan! Who would have thought the greatest medical jutsu expert in the world was afraid of a little blood? Sasaki sneered as he rushed forward to Tsunade, who fell to her knees, covering her face with her hands, fighting the ghost of her memories. Even now, in the midst of battle, decades later, images of her loved ones tormented her so. Crash! Sasaki came to an abrupt stop as a blur of red, green, and white appeared in front of him. A split second and palm thrust to the chest later, the swordsman flew through the air for the third time and crashed through two trees before coming to a skidding stop on the opposite side of the clearing. On your feet, Tsunade! Jiraiya commanded, swaying somewhat on his feet. You stupid woman, Jiraiya shouted at her, though his voice was somewhat gentle. Give me a cure for this fucking drug. I'm seeing double. Scratch that. I'm seeing triple. Jiraiya! Orochimaru screamed furiously, gripping his sword tightly and hating the very image of his former teammate. Why is it you are always there to foil my plans? Enough! Orochimaru rushed forward, having heard Jiraiya mentioning his poisoned state. Intent on finishing the sage off before his condition could be fixed. Kabuto, tend to Sasaki! Orochimaru's body transformed midair, shifting into a more snake-like figure. His body gained freakish length, and his scaly skin became more prominent. As he closed in, he was brought to a sudden halt as mud erected before him, hardening into a thick wall of earth. Recognizing the jutsu instantly, Orochimaru remembered with bile and hatred how his former sensei had used it against him in their bout only mere months ago. Who? Orochimaru demanded with a scream. He reverted to his human form and looked around, half expecting to find the culprit. Me! Shouted Naruto's clone as it appeared a short distance away, hurling a salvo of kunai with exploding tags attached to them. Orochimaru dodged and deflected them easily enough. However, most of them sank in the earth wall behind him and detonated, sending thick, jagged chunks of earth his way. As Orochimaru batted chunks away with his sword, slicing and dicing the chunks of earth like butter or some other soft substance, and retreated a short distance, a stream of fire came bearing down on him from behind. Snarling in anger, Orochimaru dived through the fire, much to the audible surprise of the clone, protected by his tough skin, modified with extracts of snake scales, a result of his life's work to become the ultimate being. Poof! The clone was dispatched easily enough, but Orochimaru had already lost his momentum. Surely Jiraiya would have already prepared to counter his attack by now, even in his poisoned state. Kabuto! Sasaki! His associates were by him instantly, their injuries tended to by Kabuto, whose skin was once again covered his organs. The use of Chakura Mezu in such a manner was nothing short of a life-threatening. Prolonged exposure could result in all kinds of health problems, ranging from infections to failing organs. You too, take care of Tsunade. I will deal with Jiraiya. Do not fail me. Yes, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto replied dogmatically just as Sasaki nodded and said, "You got it, boss." They made to charge forward, intent on separating the Sannin as quick as possible and disposing of them individually, just as Gamahiro came crashing down before them. Crash! The giant toad crashed down with such force the earth gave away, forming a deep impression on the landscape as it landed next to two Sannin, destroying multiple trees as it landed. Ribbit! Shizen jumped off the road and rushed to her master's side. "Tsunade-sama!" she called with relief. Naruto looked to Jiraiya. "Erosenin, how did you get here before we did?" He was somewhat annoyed, despite the look of things. How the hell did Jiraiya move so fast? From what his clone had reported through their mental link, Jiraiya had been poisoned, by Tsunade, no less. For him to beat them to this location. Naruto had a new respect for the sage. He was something else. Jiraiya kept his eyes locked on Orochimaru. "Let's just say this isn't the first time Tsunade's tried to poison me." He gave a wry smile as though remembering something humorous. "I've built a resistance to her poisons, more or less." "Right." Naruto jumped down and crouched next to Jiraiya just as Shizen reached Tsunade, hurriedly charging her own hands with green chakra, though it was quite unnecessary as Tsunade's wounds were not the problem. "What's happened to her? There's no time. How about you use some of that medical expertise on me instead? I'm still poisoned," Jiraiya reminded her. Shizen nodded, looking to Tsunade for a moment, and then moving to Jiraiya with green chakra in her hands. She placed her hands on Jiraiya's chest. As he did so, Jiraiya looked to Gamahiro and whistled appreciatively. "You got Gamahiro to be your familiar? Not bad, brat, not bad at all," Jiraiya complimented, shifting his gaze from Gamahiro to Naruto with an approving nod. The massive toad gave a croak and bowed his head respectfully. Naruto gave a small smile. It wasn't really the right time, but and he rarely got compliments from the sage that weren't accompanied with an insult or two. "Of course, it only took me a month to summon toads his side," Jiraiya added airily. "And to think it took you this long despite my help. It's kinda embarrassing, don't you think?" Naruto's expression fell. "Talk about speaking too soon. Bastard," he muttered as he assumed a stance. Eyes narrowed, Naruto spotted Kabuto and Orochimaru biting their thumbs. The former went through a string of hand seals whilst the latter merely pulled up his sleeve and smeared blood down his arm. "Hey Erigiji, what is that tattoo? Is he about to summon Dash? Kuchios no Jutsu? Shit!" Jiraiya swore. By the looks of it, Naruto's thoughts were confirmed. One could make a tattoo of their summoning contract. Poof! Poof! With two massive pillars of smoke, two of the largest serpents Naruto had ever seen appeared. He felt a cold shiver run down his back as he viewed the larger of the serpents. He was colored purple, and had black rings running down intervals on his body and massive fangs, easily 5 times as big as Naruto. The other was similar to the former, albeit considerably smaller, and was silver and black. He oddly resembled Manda enough Naruto imagined them to be related, perhaps father and son. They easily dwarfed the serpents he had encountered in the Forest of Death. "Orochimaru!" hissed Manda angrily. "How dare you summon me unannounced? Where are my 100 sacrifices?" "You shall have them soon," Orochimaru assured as he stood on the massive beast's forehead. Staring into the distance, he saw Jiraiya biting his thumb and go through a string of hand seals of his own. "And you may want to save your appetite for your archenemy." "What nonsense is this, Orochimaru?" Manda demanded angrily, swiping his tail and crushing a portion of the trees encircling the clearing, which had already been damaged severely by the battle that had raged on before the snakes were summoned. "You mean Dash?" Poof! Jiraiya, Gamabunta appeared, a massive dumpling of rice and flies the size of a small house still in his hand. Evidently, the Toad Chief had been eating just as he was summoned, and this clearly angered Bunta. "How dare you summon me during my meal? You and your little apprentice both." "I ought to." Gamabunta caught himself mid-sentence as his massive eyes Manda and his son before them. "Manda!" Naruto's sweat dropped. He could instantly spot the hatred between the Toad Chief and Boss Summon of the Snakes. "How in the hell did I get caught up in this freak show?" Naruto looked up to Jiraiya, perched on Gamabunta's head, and decided to jump on top of Gamahiro, whose cheeks were swelling and deflating angrily at the sight of Manda's son, upon whose head Kabuto and Sasaki were standing. "Make me a snakeskin wallet, Gamahiro-chan. You fucking got it, Naruto." Ribbit, having never heard or expected his toad familiar to swear, Naruto did a double take. The notion of it hadn't even crossed his mind, it was just too odd. It sounded even odder since Gamahiro's entire get-up resembled that of a samurai. Warriors, Naruto believed, who never swore as it was deemed unnecessary and dishonorable. Yeah, get him. Tear those slimy snake bastards apart. You too, Gamabunta, Ribbit. Gamma Hero and Gamabunta responded in unison as Gamma Hero unsheathed his blade. Here, take that, you stinking snake. Gamabunta threw the smelly-looking rice and flies dumpling in his hand at Manda, hitting him straight in the face. Suck on that, you worthless shit. Orochimaru had been lucky to dodge the massive rice ball, however Manda was not, and the massive snake trashed with fury. What is this stench? Filthy toad stench. Arg, you have crossed me for the last time, Gamabunta. I will swallow you whole, and the fight was on. Whether their summoners directed to or not. Perhaps one day Naruto would look back and laugh his ass off as he retold the story. However, that was not the case now. It was the present, and the present was fucking terrifying. It took Naruto's utmost of self-control not to let out a frightened scream as the massive beasts collided. Midair, Orochimaru and Jiraiya jumped at one another and engaged in a fierce taijutsu match he soon lost track of as they seemingly disappeared, leaving Naruto, Gamma Hero and Gamabunta to deal with Kabuto, Sasaki, Manda and his son, distracted for the briefest of moments. Naruto did not see it coming when Sasaki flew towards him and jump-kneed him straight in the face with such force Naruto could hear something break as he flew backwards through the air. Kabuto soared past, using him as a stepping stone to get ahead whilst crushing his ribs under his sandal. Oh, Naruto versus Sasaki. Naruto crashed to the ground and was followed swiftly by Sasaki as Kabuto landed in a nimble crouch like a cat and charged towards his targets, Tsunade and Shizen. Clearly, he intended to take out Tsunade before she got over her catatonic spell. Kabuto's hands were already sparkling with blue chakra. Naruto saw it clearly when the bespectacled shinobi stepped on him. Naruto could only hope Shizen was on top of her game. As strong as Tsunade was, Shizen had informed him of her affliction on the way over, and from the looks of it she wasn't going to be of much help. Oof. Naruto lied flat on his back, blood running down his nose and a headache already on the way. Stupid, stupid, stupid! Naruto mentally berated himself. How could he have let himself be distracted like that? Keen on some revenge, Naruto rolled over his shoulders in a crouch to face his attacker. He was considerably taller than Naruto, around 6 feet 6 inches, and appeared to be rather muscular. He couldn't quite tell due to his opponent's cloak. His skin was somewhat grayish-brown, his hair short rows of brown spiky locks, dark eyes accentuated by a feral grin easily noticeably due to his jagged, shark-like teeth. A thick, jagged scar ran down Sasaki's left eye, a wound of battle most likely. Sasaki stood waiting for him calmly, arms stowed under his cloak. It was insulting, really, but Naruto wouldn't let his pride get the better of him. It was much more entertaining to wipe the smirk of his face through force and make him regret his arrogance right before he put him out of his misery. Naruto whipped off the blood from under his nose and climbed to his feet. The Kyuubi's chakra already started to heal his broken nose. A healing ability? Now that's impressive! Sasaki exclaimed with unnerving enthusiasm, clearly impressed. Is that a bloodline limit or something? You're a lucky little shit, aren't you? Naruto gave no response and surged forward. A kunai shot in his hand from the ninja wire contraption built under his sleeve. Sasaki sidestepped the initial lunge and lightly dashed backwards to avoid the second swipe, all the while keeping his hands under his cloak. You're going to have to better than that, Sasaki taunted, much to Naruto's annoyance, who growled and charged again, swiping and stabbing with fury, only to miss at every step. Sasaki retaliated with a sudden, brutal high kick to the face. Naruto dropped to the ground, rolling over his shoulders on the dirt. He formed a hand seal and wordlessly created 3 Kage Bunshin to aid him in his fight. The clones charged ahead as Naruto switched to ninjutsu. He could tell Sasaki was faster than him, and that taijutsu would not win him this fight. It wasn't so much that his opponent was that fast, but rather that his considerable height advantage over Naruto made it tougher for the Chunin to land a solid blow, let alone beat him. The blonde had learned of this disadvantage against Kajairi, the first opponent who was considerably taller than him. From a mere glimpse of Sasaki's abilities, Naruto could tell he wouldn't have it as easy as he did against Kajairi, who was considerably slower, and whose moves were painfully easy to read. He had a much more difficult time reading Sasaki's movements. I really need to spend some more time with Lee, Naruto made a mental note as he took deep breath. Katan, Ryuka no Jutsu. The 3 clones who had been throwing kicks and punches at Sasaki simultaneously jumped back as the dragon fire jutsu raced towards Sasaki. Chi! Sasaki was audibly annoyed having to resort to his kenjutsu as he withdrew a single sword, sheath and all, from his hip and twirled it at an insane speed to redirect the fire. The fire stream bounced off the sword sheath and split into 3 smaller blasts to destroy the clones. Naruto jumped forward, expecting to land a punch, only to be blocked by the sword sheath gripped firmly by Sasaki, who had the audacity to look indifferent. "You're good, kid, but hopelessly out of your fucking league," Sasaki declared. Furious with himself and with Sasaki for toying with him, Naruto launched himself backwards and landed in a crouch, and ran forward again, cocking back his arm and aiming for the dirt before Sasaki. "Futon, Repusho!" he shouted, palm thrusting the air. As it had done against Tsunade, dirt kicked upwards to form a massive, obscuring cloud of earth. However, no sooner had Naruto ran into it and made a seal to create more shadow clones, had Sasaki appeared before him, somehow having sniffed him out in the dirt cloud, leaning so low he was ducked under Naruto's hands as they formed a hand seal. The swordsman half unsheathed his blade, shoving the butt of the sword handle into Naruto's ribs. Naruto held his ribs as he flew out the dirt cloud through the air, a sharp pain in his ribs. Sasaki possessed monstrous strength. Though it was nowhere near that of the Sannin, he still cracked bones with ease. "I've already seen you use that attack," Sasaki revealed. "Once I've seen an attack, it won't ever work on me." Naruto struggled to catch his breath. When he regained his bearings, he reached for his summoning scroll in his pouch. He came to the conclusion a while ago. He was going to need to use a real weapon at some point if he ever faced a swordsman as skilled as Sasaki. He withdrew the summoning scroll in which he stored the weapons he had gathered from the bandits he dispatched days ago. Naruto didn't have time to specifically unseal one, thus decided to unseal all of them at once. With a pillar of smoke, the weapons appeared on the ground. There were several weapons he had collected, a bow and a few clubs and spears and daggers here and there, but Naruto picked the one that came without a sheath, its gleaming metal beckoning him. "What's this?" Sasaki mockingly feigned ignorance. "You're going to try and match my swordsmanship? You must be a whole fucking lot dumber than you look, kid." Naruto gripped the blade tightly. It was shorter than a katana, a kodachi or a nodachi perhaps, he couldn't quite tell. His knowledge on swords was too limited to accurately determine the sword type. Examining it for the briefest moments, it seemed to have been kept in good condition. Its metal gleamed in the light as he held it up. Where there was supposed to be a guard or a sword hilt, there was only a thick layer of white bandages. Naruto could tell the sword was probably never finished, but he didn't have much time to be choosy and pick another as Sasaki rushed forward with his own sword still sheathed. "Don't think I'll let you have a nice little nit and pick, kiddo. I don't have all day." Clang! Naruto successfully blocked Sasaki's downward slash with the blade in his hand. Sasaki's eyes widened. What the capitalizing on the opening, Naruto kicked him in the chest, forcing the older man to back off, and charged on, intent on keeping his momentum going. "You're not getting away that easily." Naruto lunged forward. Sasaki deflected with considerable force, blowing Naruto's arm backwards. The swordsman was in for a surprise, however, when Naruto reversed the blade's hilt and somersaulted sideways, ripping through Sasaki's cloak and revealing Sasaki's remaining 2 arms. Much like Tsunade, his brief distraction cost him a kick to the gut, a surprisingly powerful kick which sent him skidding and bounding over the ground with incredible force. Naruto stabbed the earth with his blade to come to a stop. He pointedly ignored the pain in his chest, too shocked with his opponent's 4 arms. "What the fuck is that?" Naruto needlessly gestured to the pair of additional arms attached to Sasaki's ribcage. Though muscular, they were a sickening hue of dark purple and veins popped out. They appeared to be broken. Probably by the old hag, Naruto deducted, whistling lowly at that thought. "Oh, these?" Sasaki feigned embarrassed modesty. "Let's just say Orochimaru-sama is good to his people." Sasaki made a distasteful noise. The old bitch broke these with a single punch though. "Fuck it!" As though decided on a whim, Sasaki unsheathed his blade, and to Naruto's horror, sliced off his additional pair of arms. "What's that look for? It's not like you're the one feeling it." "This hurts like hell." "You sure don't look like you're in a lot of pain," Naruto observed easily. Sasaki shrugged indifferently. "Heh, I guess I've grown used to it." "What's your name?" Sasaki then asked curiously. "You're an interesting kid." "I'm still going to kill you, but I like to learn the names of the interesting people I kill." Not at all flattered, Naruto humored him anyway. "Uzumaki Naruto." Sasaki Genji, his opponent, gave a mock bow. "Thought that won't matter much longer, seeing as you're going to die now." "Ahu," Naruto grunted noncommittally, sneaking a glance over his shoulder to see Shizen fighting Kabuto whilst protecting an unmoving Tsunade. "I need to settle this as quickly as I can," Naruto decided. "Let's get this over with, Sasaki." Sasaki shrugged. It's your funeral. No, it isn't. Not today, Naruto challenged, the sword still held in a reverse grip. It felt more comfortable that way. The sword's hilt was shorter than usual, it was light and balanced, only somewhat heavier than a kunai. Whoever created this sword clearly knew what they were doing. Its sharpness and lightness was a testament to that fact. Seemingly accepting his challenge, Sasaki unsheathed his blade and held it along with the sheath in his other hand. I'll make sure to spill some sake for your soul, Uzumaki Naruto. Sasaki kicked his discarded limbs at Naruto and charged. His opponent wasn't above using dirty tricks, it seemed. Naruto realized as he cut through the discarded arms far easier than he had anticipated. Sasaki was upon him in an instant, and slammed his sword sheath in his ribs, breaking his feeble defense and stabbing at his face, though he escaped with only a cut on his cheek. Angered, Naruto retaliated with a headbutt, which he instantly regretted as it did him more harm than Sasaki, who recovered almost instantaneously, and punched back with the guard of his blade, forcing him into a dazed stumble. Whether it was down to pure luck or actual skill, Naruto had no idea, but as he kicked upwards on instinct he pushed back the upcoming attack, forcing the hilt away with his foot, and using his body as a ledge of sorts as he fell backwards and stumbled and rolled over his shoulders back to his feet and side-flipped again to avoid another stab. I can't face him head-on, Naruto reminded himself, flushing chakra to his legs and dashing back and around in rapid succession and eyes locked on Sasaki, looking for an opening to exploit as he dodged, ducked stabs and swipes. There were no openings, much to his frustration. You're a fast little fucker, I'll give you that. It's not going to do you any good though, Sasaki declared, sauntering aimlessly and yawning without a care in the world. You won't touch me, kid. You're nowhere near skilled enough with a sword to actually beat me, and even if you were, you still wouldn't be fast enough to do any damage. Naruto leapt forward, the blade in a regular grip, and attempt to hack and slash away at Sasaki. Perhaps random and unpredictable attacks would throw him off. Who knew? It could work, or not. Naruto backed away with a fresh cut on his abdomen, once again saved by his reflexes. Sasaki had aimed to run him through this time. This is getting old, Sasaki noted with clear boredom. Despite this, Naruto could tell he was getting on his opponent's nerves. Say, why don't you tell me all about your little healing ability? At least humor me, won't you? Four Eyes over there is hogging the cute one, so even if I kill you right here and now, I'll still be left to my own devices. I'll be bored out of my fucking mind watching Four Eyes play with his food. How the hell is this guy beating me? It was one thing to lose to someone more skilled than you were. It was another, completely unacceptable thing to lose to someone with the mentality of a fucking 6-year-old. It's called none of your fucking business. Ooh, touchy, Sasaki mocked. Naruto decided to wing it and charged ahead, once again engaging Sasaki in a brief bout of a kenjutsu duel. He fared better this time, letting his instincts and reflexes take control as he jumped and turned and sidestepped with acrobatic finesse and retaliated with ferociousness, hacking at whatever he could reach. It seemed to put Sasaki on the defense, something he clearly wasn't used to, and whilst he struggled to react in time, Naruto managed to cut him in the arm. It was a shallow cut, perhaps in actuality it was a graze, but he regarded it as a small victory nonetheless. Sasaki dashed backwards. He held his sword above him, expecting his wound with a bemused expression. Alright then, looks like you're getting serious, kid, Sasaki growled approvingly. See if you can take this. Hitotachi no Tensai. In an instant, before Naruto could even blink, Sasaki blazed past him at speed, his eyes follow but his body could not react to. Pain suddenly shot through Naruto, and as he looked down his chest he realized he was bleeding from a deep slash mark running from his abdomen to his side. Ugh, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Naruto dropped to a knee, leaning on his sword for a second or two before he fell face first on the ground with a grunt, eyes closing as the world went dark. Oh, Jiraiya versus Orochimaru. Orochimaru and Jiraiya were going at it at untraceable speeds, trading blows all over the place. They were moving so fast they were merely blurs to anyone who tried to keep up. Their clashes were brief and destructive, rendering their surrounding area to nothingness, as though a bomb had gone off and blown everything away. It appears your apprentice has met his match a little early, Orochimaru taunted. He was stuck to a tree, which shuddered and lost its leaves as Gamabunta and Manda continued to go at it, destroying the landscape even more than they were and their massive weights causing minor quakes. Did you really think he could best Sasaki? You're a fool, Jiraiya. Katan, Ryuka no Jutsu, was the sage's response. Orochimaru didn't even bother dodging and dove straight through the fire, protected by his hard-as-rock scales. Clang! His blade held in his tongue was met with tough resistance against Jiraiya's headband. Orochimaru frowned. He should have cut straight through it with ease. After all, the Kusanagi was a legendary blade of untold value, a true shinken. Jiraiya broke his thoughts with a solid punch to the face that sent him crashing through the tree he had just vacated. The toad sage hung upside down from a thick tree branch and tapped his forehead protector. It had the kanji 4 oil engraved between the two demonic-looking horns. Empty Myobokuzen steel, Jiraiya elaborated. Your pretty little blade might cut through everything else, but not this. We'll see about that. Orochimaru hissed. The legendary shinobi moved in an instant, meeting one another midair in another clash, which was left wholly undecided as they broke apart in less than a second. I'll make sure you'll be reunited with all of your students today, Jiraiya. Orochimaru spat a green, acidic substance at Jiraiya. The white-haired Sannin dodged with relative ease. Why don't you worry about yourself, Maru? Jiraiya mocked. He snuck a glance to the distance, hoping and willing his apprentice to get to his feet and carry on fighting. You look worried, old friend. Jiraiya ducked and dodged swipes and stabs, spat an acidic oil of his own at Orochimaru, forcing him to a distance once more. Two could play at that game. I'm not. I've got complete faith in that kid, Jiraiya replied with bravado. Unlike you, I don't just use my students for my own gains. I have faith in my kid's abilities. He'll pull through, you just watch. Orochimaru snarled at Jiraiya. What would you possibly know about teaching, Jiraiya? At the very least, all of my students are alive. Well, those that didn't fail me. He cackled with mad laughter. The same cannot be said for you. All the students you have ever taught are dead. Orochimaru sneered at him, and this one will join the other soon enough. As will you, Jiraiya's face contorted with anger. You're going to pay for that one, Orochimaru. Jiraiya jumped back a distance, and went through a hand seals. I guess it's time I'll show you some of my new techniques. I'm sure you'll appreciate the contrast between the freak show you've become, and what I am capable of. Jiraiya slammed his hand on the ground. Kuchios no jutsu. Poof! Poof! Jiraiya-chan? Shima and Fukasaku croaked as they appeared before him. Long time no see, Shima croaked happily whilst Fukasaku glared at Orochimaru. So it has finally come to this, Jiraiya-chan? Well then, I suppose calling us was the right to do, but still, the elderly toad's cheeks swell up with annoyance. You really must take the time to master Sage Mode on your own, Jiraiya-chan. Thanks for coming, Ma-Pa. I will, Jiraiya replied. They did tend to infantilize him, and had done so since he was a child. It only seemed appropriate to refer to them affectionately. Orochimaru's sneer was dropped in exchange for a confused expression. Sage Mode? The serpent repeated. Well, that sounds interesting. You'll see soon enough. Jiraiya declared as Ma and Pa hopped on his shoulders and he slapped his hands together. Right after I gather enough sage energy, see ya. Orochimaru nearly did a double take as Jiraiya suddenly turned around and hightailed out of there. What is this mockery? Orochimaru hissed as he pursued. Oh, Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up with a groan and crawled to his feet, noticing under the poor lighting the water he had been lying face down was neither cold nor wet. This place again? Naruto said out loud. He had only been here once, but he remembered it clearly. Who wouldn't have? He was thrown off a damn ravine when it happened the first time. Good times, Naruto thought dryly as he remembered summoning Gamabunta for the very first time. He looked around the Kyuubi's lair. Technically it was his mindscape, but for the life of him Naruto couldn't understand why his mind would resemble a sewer, thus he preferred to think of it as the Kyuubi's dominion. Might as well get this over with, Naruto grumbled as he began to walk in a random direction. Finding the Kyuubi's cage was easy enough. He seemed to instinctively know where to go. Kyuubi! Naruto called out to the darkness behind the giant gate. I know you're there, wake up. It's time to pay rent for ball. A gargantuan claw emerged from between the gates, clawing at Naruto angrily. Welp, the Kyuubi acknowledged his presence. I had expected to see you sooner, now that we have an agreement. 2. Naruto stared right back at the giant red, slit eyes. The Kyuubi's massive fangs gleamed in a snarl. No thanks, Naruto replied, refusing to blink. There's no way I'm going to start relying on you, Kyuubi. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I'm going to fight with my own strength. I'm not a coward. The fox gave a dark chuckle, pressing its head to the gates. Naruto gave a sigh. He didn't exactly like doing this. It looks like we're up against someone stronger than I am. I'm going to need your help on this one, and you shall have it. As per our agreement, Crimson, Bubbly chakra began to ebb outwards from the cage and touch Naruto's feet. It appeared as though Naruto was set on fire as a cloak of crimson chakra settled over him, infusing him with strength that was not his own. Thanks. Oh, real world, Naruto vs. Sasaki. Sasaki had been watching Kabuto from afar, having thought his blonde opponent was down for the count, but as he felt an enormous spike of chakra, his eyes flickered to Naruto, who stirred awake with a grunt as his body rejuvenated and the wound on his side and stomach seamlessly closed up. What the fuck is this? Sasaki growled with confusion. What the hell was going with this kid? He was sure he had put him down for good. What are you? Sasaki demanded. Naruto slowly got to his feet, his eyes no longer electric blue orbs but blood red, slit eyes piercing the older man with cold, level-headed killing intent. The end of you. No sooner had Naruto said it, did chakra, crimson chakra, flow out and cover him like a cloak. I guess I should give this form a name, Naruto said to himself out loud in a soft, pensive tone. Then, looking at Sasaki for the briefest of seconds, he seemingly disappeared, and reappeared next to the arachnid swordsman, decking him in the cheek with enough force to break his cheekbone. Sasaki grunted in pain, hopping sideways on one leg to keep from falling due to the pure force he had been struck with. Sasaki stopped himself by stabbing the earth and leant on his sword, but Naruto was on him, speedily appearing in front of him, and plunging his fist in the swordsman's stomach before he could defend himself. His gasp for air was like music to his ears. A fucking symphony. Naruto thought as Sasaki fell to his knees, now at the height of Naruto's shoulders. Taking a step back to dodge a wild swing to the neck, Naruto retaliated with a powerful kick to Sasaki's face. The swordsman's head was smashed straight to the ground sideways, sinking a few inches into the ground. He wasn't down for long, however, rolling aside as Naruto raised his heel high in the air, intending to break Sasaki's solar plexus. The earth crumbled upon impact, forming a sizable depression. Naruto looked to his side, glaring at Sasaki, who had managed to react fast enough to avoid his killing blow. Swiping blood from his chin, Sasaki snarled. All right, no more playing around. He cast aside the remains of his cloak. Under his cloak Sasaki wore a simple black mesh garb, nothing extravagant. It was wholly basic and practical, with additional holes on the side of his robe to accommodate his additional pair of limbs. Sasaki held a syringe in his hand. He gave a laugh, loud and boisterous. This, my shithead little friend, is a serum created by Orochimaru-sama. What does it do, you ask? I don't care, Naruto interjected with indifference. Sasaki continued unperturbed. Well, I'll tell you anyway. Sasaki cackled insanely. Naruto remained unimpressed. You might have heard of Orochimaru-sama's curse seals. At this Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly. Well, this is that in the form of serum. See, our agreement was that I didn't get a pretty mark like the others. I don't want him to control me. I'm not like the others, I'm not crazy. You sure could have fooled me. Naruto stared impassively, his insides cold with measured rage. For whatever reasons this, Jinchuriki mode changed his disposition. He was calmer, more level-headed. His anger was still there was no doubt about it, but he felt in control. He was in control. It won't help, Naruto said coldly. You're going to die right here. Sasaki cackled with deranged laughter. He seemed psychotic. Even more so when he suddenly stabbed himself in the thigh without warning, screaming at the top of his lungs. I just want power. Sasaki roared with pain as he buckled under the strain and agony his body was going through as flesh seemed to pour of his sides. It was a sickening sight, but Naruto watched on nonetheless. There we go, Sasaki breathed heavily moments later, on one knee and with a twisted grin on his face. In the distance, Naruto could see, Gamahiro was having a tough time against Manda's son, but he was faring well nonetheless. The same could be said for Gamabunta. Though he had been bitten once or twice, Manda had at least 3 puncture wounds in his thick hide and was bleeding more than the Toad Boss. Naruto could see the massive snake was in the process of shedding its skin to heal itself. Let's get this over with, Naruto said, glancing to Tsunade and Shizen. Shizen was forced to take on Kabuto on her own whilst Tsunade remained in a catatonic state. You're going to regret those words, you little shit. Face darkening with anger, Sasaki unsheathed all 4 of his blades. Naruto smiled slightly in a taunting fashion. I thought spiders had 8 legs. Even including your legs, you've got 6. What are you, a reject? It didn't get a rise out of Sasaki as Naruto had hoped. The only response he got was a scowl. The serum is a work in progress. Sasaki's 4 swords crossed in front of him in offensive guard. Now the fight really begins, kid. Now you die. Sasaki charged, not quite as fast as he was before. Naruto credited this to the strenuous results from growing additional limbs. Yant Satsujin, Naruto's chakra flared and the crimson cloak of energy covered him. He moved instantaneously, streaking past Sasaki and coming to an abrupt stop a few feet away. He suffered a thick gash on his right bicep and a cut on his cheek, and his shirt was badly ripped. It was a small cost, however. His wounds immediately started to heal. His psychotic opponent fell to a knee with a scream, having been on the receiving end of tearing claw of the Kyuubi's chakra to his side but not yet out of the fight. Naruto calmly turned to look over his shoulder to see Sasaki turn around. He smiled vaguely, a bead of sweat running down the side of his face. Hee hee. Oddly enough, Sasaki seemed to be calming down. He went from enraged to passive so quick Naruto was convinced there was something wrong with the guy. You're good, kid. I'm glad I met you. Naruto slowly turned around and went through a string of seals just as Sasaki noticed the dozens of caltrops on spread over the ground. Dotun, Doria Taiga, Naruto called, crouching as he sunk his fingers into the ground. The earth rapidly grew moist and shot up to wrap Sasaki in a muddy blanket. The caltrops stuck out sporadically over the mud. Why was it easy? The Kyuubi's chakra strengthened his jutsu exponentially. It was almost too easy restraining the swordsman. The look of horror on Sasaki's face was almost amusing. Perhaps the swordsman could tell he was about to die already. Naruto withdrew his fingers from the earth and stood up, his hands in the ram's seal. Yum no Hara, boom, keyed to his chakra signature, the special brand of caltrops given to him by Shiho detonated within the containment of the hold he had on Sasaki. The explosion was so powerful that a powerful gale blew past. Where Sasaki had stood only moments ago was a large, blackened crater bellowing smoke. Naruto spared no second glance and looked to the distance where he saw Tsunade and Shizen. His eyes narrowed. In a blink of an eye he disappeared, a mere blur at the speed he was traveling. Oh, Shizen and Tsunade versus Kabuto. Shizen couldn't remember ever having a tougher time on the battlefield than she did now. Granted, she wasn't very battle-hardened to begin with, considering she left Konoha with Tsunade at a young age. She had been barely a genin at the time, so it wasn't like she had any experience worth speaking of at that point. Tsunade took her in to be part of the first batch of kunoichi trained as medical shinobi. She was supposed to be proof that Tsunade's proposed policy, the compulsory teaching of basic medical ninjutsu, would be a great addition to the academy's teaching curriculum. Her uncle Dan had encouraged Tsunade to push for the idea. Unfortunately, Tsunade's policy was not only rejected due to low funds at time of war, but Dan died not long after. It had taken Tsunade too long to reach his team's position in the battlefield. 3. Had her proposed plan been accepted and enforced, there might have been someone there who could have stopped the bleeding until she arrived. Perhaps in another universe, where her plan was accepted, Dan could have lived. Perhaps. Shizen snapped out of it with a shake of her head. Tsunade's hemophobia had thrown her mind off track. Tsunade-sama, please snap out of it. Shizen pleaded, pulling back the wire on her Saban launcher and firing a hail at Kabuto. Oh, by the look of her, she's clearly gone catatonic, Kabuto patronized. He dodged her Saban projectiles with relative ease. An arrogant smile graced his bespectacled features. Just give up, he taunted Shizen. You know you cannot beat me, you coward, Shizen spat for a lack of words. Kabuto was not impressed. Offering her a theatrical raise of the arms, he mocked her in a pretentious tone. Oh, come now. We are shinobi, there is no such thing as cowardice. There are only those who kill and those who are killed, like you. Chakra scalpels charged, the silver-haired Nukenin rushed at Shizen. She glared at him, wrapping Tsunade's arm around her neck and holding up a one-handed hand seal. Ninpo, Dokujiri, purple gas escaped out of her mouth in an obscure cloud of poison. The poison mist technique was Shizen's ace in the hole. Classed as a kenjutsu due to the harmful long-term risks to the user and highly dangerous nature of the technique, it was useful for making a quick getaway and making sure your pursuers couldn't follow you. Shizen's variant was a mild toxic one, capable of knocking out a fully grown adult for 12 hours. Unfortunately, she was up against another medical shinobi. Kabuto's Chakura Meza faltered, replaced seconds later by green healing chakra to clear his lungs and from the toxic substance in the air, also preventing it from entering his bloodstream. Damn it, Tsunade-sama. Shizen swore. She felt helpless, beleaguered by both Kabuto and Tsunade, the latter of whom had become a liability in her catatonic state, unable to take care of Kabuto, a shinobi she could have destroyed with ease on her worst day in her prime. Neat little trick, Kabuto commented as he emerged from the purple mist of poison, but we really must wrap this up. Kabuto retrieved an unconventional kunai from his holster. It was customized to be longer and curved on the end, a tool used by hunter ninja for field autopsies perhaps. Shizun stumbled backwards and fell to the ground in her hurry to escape. She spread her arms protectively over Tsunade, a determined expression on her face, willing to die protecting her teacher. Touching, Kabuto sneered. He plunged the kunai forward, aiming for Shizun's chest. She closed her eyes, not wanting to see her killer in the eye. As she closed her eyes, she saw a blur of black and blue. A ripping sound of flesh and spatter of blood made her open her eyes. Before her stood Naruto with his back turned to them, in his hand firmly gripping Kabuto's hand despite having a lengthy kunai drilled to his hand. 4. What happened to Sasaki? Kabuto demanded. His arrogance changed to outrage and confusion. You should be dead. You should be. He fell short on his sentence, a cold shiver running down his spine as he looked into Naruto's red-slit eyes. He's dead, and you're about to join him. Naruto called forth the Kyuubi's chakra and applied more pressure. Kabuto gave a scream of pain as Naruto audibly broke his hand and forced him on to one knee. Naruto then let go of the Kyuubi's chakra and it ebbed away as soon as he called it. His eyes reverted to shocking blue. Pay attention, Bakan, I'm about to win our bet. To Shizun's immense shock, Tsunade, even in her catatonic state, shifted her gaze to meet Naruto's eyes as he looked at her over his shoulder, nodding ever so slightly. Tsunade-sama. Naruto looked back to Kabuto, who lunged with another kunai. Naruto batted away his hand, reared back his head and delivered a cracking heat but to the bespectacled medic Nin, breaking his glasses with ease. Then Naruto outstretched his free hand and concentrated. Kabuto quivered as chakra began to visibly swirl in Naruto's hand. Did Kabuto recognize the jutsu he was about to use? Naruto wondered for only a brief moment. The blue orb of chakra screeched a delightful humming sound. Kabuto jumped to his feet and desperately tried to back away. Unfortunately for him, Naruto's grip was too strong. As Naruto pushed the orb towards Kabuto's chest, the latter's free hand sparked with chakra. Naruto roared as he pushed the blue orb into Kabuto's chest. Rasengan! The results were spectacular. Drilling an actual human with the technique was far different than what he had experienced testing the jutsu on inanimate objects like trees and boulders. The Rasengan's screech kicked up in volume as it rotated with such velocity Kabuto's clothes shredded under the rotating force of the Rasengan. Naruto's eyes widened as Kabuto began fighting back against the Rasengan's force, much to Naruto's horror, and raised his chakra-covered hand with a furious scream. Acting on instinct, Naruto roared as he pushed more chakra into the Rasengan. Then the orb expanded and swallowed Kabuto whole. Naruto continued to push the technique and sent it blasting off. 5. Kabuto's screams were drowned by the screeching Rasengan that enveloped him. The Rasengan blasted through the clearing before coming to a stop with an explosion. Bang! Shizun's eyes were widened. Th, that was amazing, Naruto-kun. She felt like cheering as she scrambled to her feet. Naruto's posture slumped. His face was set in an ambiguous expression. He appeared to be half surprised with his own technique and conflicted. Angry even. Naruto-kun? Shizun placed a hand on his shoulder. Are you alright? She asked. He gave no response. Naruto, blood gushed out of his mouth. Naruto fell forward, his eyes rolling back into his head as he fell with a dull thud. Chapter 8. The Future Hokage. Thud. Naruto lied on the ground face first, unmoving and unresponsive to Shizun's calls. The brunette kneeled by the boy in seconds, and rolled him to his back. Tsunade-sama. The older woman gave no response, much to her frustration. Shizun grabbed the kunai Kabuto dropped and tore open Naruto's top. Then looking at Tsunade again, she cast aside the kunai and her hands went through a string of hand seals. Shozen Jutsu. Her hands glowed green with the mythical palm technique. Placing her hands on the teenager's chest, Shizun immediately detected the problem. Naruto's heart stopped beating. Whatever Kabuto had done to the young Chunin had affected his heart. Shizun concentrated on restoring the blood flow as fast she could. Hang in there, Naruto-kun, Shizun said to the unconscious blonde. Frowning with concentration, Shizun realized her efforts were doing little good. What's wrong with you, Naruto-kun? From the sidelines, Tsunade twitched. Tendons, she muttered. Shizun looked relieved. Tsunade seemed to finally regain her composure. Tsunade-sama, tell me what to do. Tsunade nodded and crawled over, probably not trusting her legs to hold her weight, as she was still shaking somewhat, and color had yet to return to her skin. Kabuto used a chakra scalpel to cut his heart tendons. You're not concentrating on the right area. Tsunade frowned with concentration, Then, nodding with conviction, she gently grabbed Shizen's wrists and redirected her efforts to the right area. That damnable fool and his meddling! Their heads snapped up to the sound of Kabuto's voice. He emerged slowly from the bellowing dirt cloud caused by Naruto's rasengan. He walked slowly and awkwardly. The lint keeping his hair in a ponytail was destroyed, leaving his hair in a long gray mane. His glasses were destroyed and he cast them aside. His purple tunic was, for the most part, torn to shreds, leaving his chest bare. It allowed the medical kunoichi to get a good view of his body regenerating as the wound caused by Naruto's rasengan swirled to a close. Kabuto sneered at Shizen's disbelief. Did you really think that fool could beat me? How he managed to defeat Sasaki, I do not know, but I'm not going to give him a chance to get back on his feet. Kabuto bent to pick up his weapon. Shizen immediately regretted throwing it aside. I'll kill all of you. Kabuto cackled with an insane laughter. Suddenly not so rigid in his movements, he rushed forward, aiming a killing blow at Naruto's unconscious form. No! Shizen screamed, her Shozen jutsu faltering as she protected Naruto with her body. She closed her eyes. When no pain came, she looked up to the sound of blood spatter. Tsunade's eyes widened. Tsunade had moved faster than she had ever done in order to protect them, and did so with her body. She bit back a scream as Kabuto's kunai plunged through her chest. Surely it was going to kill her, and if his twisted smile was any indication, Kabuto thought so too. He didn't smile for long, however, as, to both Kabuto and Shizen, Tsunade still somehow managed to swing a punch to his face with such force it resounded through the air and Kabuto flew backwards like a gray and purple missile. Blood oozed out Tsunade's chest. She gripped the kunai handle and ruthlessly ripped it out. She did not even flinch as she did it, a true testament to her resilience. That kid. He's just like Nawaki, the woman realized with a stronger sense of clarity than she had ever experienced before. I have to protect him, even at the cost of my own life. I won't let him die. Why won't you just die, Tsunade? Your time has come. Kabuto pulled out several kunai and threw them at Tsunade, who did not move. She refused to let her assistant and Naruto die. Tsunade held up her arms in cross-shaped guard and let out an unsuccessfully restrained scream of pain as kunai plunged into her arms, chest and legs. Kabuto gave a scream of outrage and rushed forward to finish her, or so he thought. Even in her condition, Tsunade easily countered him, gripping his kunai-toting hand and directing it upwards as she drove her knee in Kabuto's stomach and her elbow in his back. Crack! It was a sickening sight to behold as Kabuto's ribs broke and healed themselves within seconds. Tsunade dashed backwards and fell to knee. You will not hurt them. Kabuto rushed forward, thinking she had finally run out of steam, but was once again in for a surprise as she bull-tackled him. Her shoulder drove in his stomach, taking the air out of his lungs and sending him flying a good 30 feet. When was she going to die? Tsunade-sama. Tears welled up in Shizen's eyes with relief and pride in her teacher, who had been a mother figure of sorts to her too. You're so strong, she said as she looked at Tsunade's back. Look after that boy, Tsunade said in a steady, albeit panting voice. She did not look over her shoulder, but Shizen could tell she had a determined look in her eyes. Her voice was a clear indicative. That boy, he reminds me of them. She gave a soft chuckle. I guess Jiraiya was right after all, she said as she got to her feet as Kabuto once again approached them, a psychotic expression on his face. That's an interesting technique you got there. Kabuto paused momentarily. Looking down at his wounds, which were already healing, he looked back to Tsunade with an air of superiority. I have long since surpassed you in the field of medicinal ninjutsu, Tsunade-sama. He gave an uncharacteristically loud laugh. Your time is over. Soon the world will know a new #1 medical shinobi, me, Kabuto. Tsunade's expression was stony. She gave him a hard stare but did not seem offended. Perhaps, she said after a moment, the new generation overtaking the older generation, such is the cycle of life. Years ago I surpassed the world's great medical specialists before me, and someday I will be surpassed by another. Oh, but you see, that day has already come, Kabuto declared. My Inyu Shometsu Jutsu far surpasses any other documented healing jutsu in the world. Tsunade frowned at him but said nothing, prompting Kabuto to laugh at her. You see, Tsunade-sama, my jutsu allows my body to heal any wound. You can break my bones, you can flay my skin or even rupture my organs as many times as you want, but I shall not die. Tsunade's lips twitched. Kabuto picked up on it. Finally able to realize the genius of my jutsu, are we? You said it yourself. You will one day be surpassed. I never said it was going to be you, Tsunade cut him off. She smiled this time, akin to a grin. That's a useful jutsu you've got get there, Kabuto, I must admit to that. But she pressed before Kabuto could retort. Your technique is nothing compared to mine. Just watch, Tsunade replied confidently as she formed the tiger hand seal. You have potential, I'll give you that, but you've got a long way to go and many lessons to learn. One of those lessons is this: just because it hasn't been documented, does not mean there isn't a better jutsu out there, because there always is. Let me show you! Infuin Kai, Tsunade's chakra spiked and burst out of her every pore, shrouding her in blue orb of pure energy. Kabuto's eyes widened as the wind kicked up with enough force to blow his hair back. What is this? Kabuto screamed. The chakra receded and a red glow washed over Tsunade. The diamond tattoo on her forehead bled out in a flowery ink pattern. Tsunade's brows furrowed with concentration as she manipulated the massive volumes of chakra now at her disposal. Saze, this was her ace in the hole. The creation rebirth, the absolute pinnacle of medical ninjutsu. The ultimate regeneration technique, with the vast volumes of chakra accumulated over the years, stored in the Yin seal, the mark on her forehead at once, her body cell division would be forcibly stimulated by proteins, reconstructing all organs and all tissues making up the human body. The technique itself did not regenerate the old cells, but rather it hastened the creation of new ones through division. Even if her vital organs were so gravely injured that they could no longer function, the creation rebirth would instantly restore them. As long as she had chakra, it would be impossible for her to die by any means short of beheading. It was no immortality, but she sure came close to it. Almost instantaneously, her wounds began to heal themselves, hissing with white steam as they seamlessly closed. In matter of moments, the kunai still lodged in her body popped out as her wounds regenerated her torn flesh and tendons. By the end of it, she looked healthier than she did before they even started fighting. Unbelievable! Kabuto exclaimed. Tsunade paid him no attention, smearing her thumb over her own blood and going through a string of hand seals. Kuchios no Jutsu. Tsunade slammed her hand on the ground and channeled copious amounts of chakra into the technique. Poof! A giant slug appeared before them, easily as tall as the Hokage Tower, predominantly white in color with 3 blue streaks running down its body. Katsuyu, Tsunade barked at her familiar. I need you to divide yourself in 4. Heal Naruto with my chakra, and then go help the toads. Heal them too while you're at it. Did you say Nawaki, Tsunade-sama? Katsuyu repeated, glancing at her summoner, and then to Naruto and Shizen. He looks like him. Tsunade nodded and smiled ever so slightly. His name is Naruto. Take care of him for me, will you? Use my chakra to treat his wounds. Katsuyu nodded obediently. Understood, Tsunade-sama. Katsuyu's massive figure distorted for a moment. A smaller version of her split apart and moved to Naruto, covering him with its body. The Katsuyu clone glowed bright blue as it channeled Tsunade's chakra into the youth's body to heal him. Tsunade gave a grateful nod to Katsuyu. When the summon did not move, she gave it a confusing look. What is it, Katsuyu? It's good to have you back, Tsunade-sama, Katsuyu said with her soft voice. It's good to be back. Tsunade smiled at her familiar. Now go. We'll catch up later. You need to stop Manda and Gamabunta from getting any closer to the city, or they'll destroy it. Just like old times, Katsuyu giggled. Then the massive slug split up in hundreds of miniature copies of herself and set off to intercept the Serpent King and Toad Chief. Tsunade smiled nostalgically for a moment as the slug took off. Then, turning to Kabuto, she scowled. I was distracted for a moment there. You should have taken the chance to escape. Ha, as if. Kabuto dashed forward with his Chakura Meza blazing both hands. I'll simply kill you, Tsunade smiled wryly. Your arrogance is unfounded. It will be your downfall, amateur, she told him as she sidestepped his dual lunges and chopped him in the back of his neck. Ranshinsho, oh, Gamabunta and Gamahiro versus Manda and Kyurome. Tremors raced through the earth as the giant summons fought as Gamabunta and Manda continued to battle it out to settle their age-old dispute. Take that, and that, you filthy snake bastard! Gamabunta stabbed at Manda, who despite his massive frame, coiled around his strikes, suffering only minor grazings. I never liked ya, not even when we were on the same side. The sentiment is reciprocated, toad scum! Manda retorted angrily, sinking his fangs in Gamabunta's weapon-brandishing hand. Grr, that's just one of the reasons I hate your slimy guts. Gamabunta bellowed as he began to pummel his free hand against Manda's tough scales. You always have to talk like you wear a fucking monocle, don't you? And then there's that whole royalty bullshit. You're a bottom feeder snake. You're no king. The bosses of their respective kin struggled violently, moving closer and closer to the city. Manda trashed and destroyed his surroundings with mere flicks of his tail, and Gamabunta jumped and swung his Dosa sword and cut through the landscape as he tried to stab Manda with it. Die! The summons said simultaneously as they fought. You first, they said once again unison. Stop that! Gamabunta croaked as Manda hissed the same words. Vermin? Gamabunta repeated with outrage. Figures you'd call your filthy spawn to help you, coward! I'm going to wear you like a belt once I'm done with you. I will end you, Gamabunta! Manda screamed with fury. Father! Manda's son, Kurom, screeched as he attempted to flee his opponent and come to his father's aid. I am your opponent, Snake! Gamahiro jumped higher in the air and landed on Kurom, plunging his dual blade into the ground. Kurom slithered evasively and coiled around Gamahiro with a furious hiss. You are no match for me, you fool! Die, the Prince of Serpents demands it! Kurom pulled his body tight as it constricted around Gamahiro, attempting to suffocate the toad. Gamayuden! Volumes of oil gushed out of Gamahiro's mouth and bounced off Kurom's scales and coated him in his own toad oil bullet as he had intended. Noticing a slick substance on his scales, Kurom hissed angrily. What is this, toad filth? You dare to mock me? Gamahiro had no response and jumped upwards, easily escaping Kurom's coils due to the oil slickening the scales. Ribbit! Gamahiro crashed down on the snake, landing on top of Kurom's head and squashing it under his weight. Blood spattered in all directions in a gory shower that left the surrounding area and Gamahiro covered in snake intestines. My son! Manda screamed, beating off Gamabunta with a fell-aimed flick of his tail. You! The King of Serpents bellowed at Gamahiro in a furious hiss. Gamahiro, move! Gamabunta yelled at his subordinate. Unfortunately for the toad, Gamahiro had been bitten numerous times by Manda's son, and unlike the toad chief, he had not built up a resistance against snake poisons. Thus the samurai-esque toad fell to his side with a dull croak and a massive crash. Manda bared his fangs, his mouth widening so wide it appeared he was about to swallow Gamahiro whole. A green acidic rain cast down with pinpoint accuracy between Gamahiro and the Serpent King. Recognizing the technique, Manda and Gamabunta both turned to see Katsuyu in the midst of recalling thousands of copies of herself. Several of her copies deviated and reached Gamahiro and began healing him. Katsuyu! Gamabunta acknowledged with a greeting croak. Just in time. I need a snakeskin wallet, help me out. Katsuyu shook her massive head. My apologies, Gamabunta-san, but I am not here to fight. I have come to stop both of you from reaching the city. Oh right, we did get pretty close, huh? Gamabunta could see the city of Tanzakugai with ease. Only a hop or two away. Close one. Oh, Jiraiya versus Orochimaru. Boom! Crash! Clash! Jiraiya came to a grinding stop in a crouch on the ground like a toad, fingers dug deep into the soil to stop himself. Despite its many advantages, Jiraiya wasn't partial to his sage mode as it gave him a more toad-like appearance. He now had longer marks along the sides of his face, a goatee, a larger nose with warts, and webbed hands and feet and beady toad-like eyes. And I thought you couldn't look more grotesque, Jiraiya said to Orochimaru with a grin. After being overwhelmed by his sage mode, Orochimaru was forced to reveal his true form, a giant, white-scaled snake made up of a multitude of smaller snakes, with long and spiky black hair. He had a scaled face, black eye markings and a pointed chin. Like Jiraiya's sage mode, this form gave Orochimaru incredible physical power, making him capable of easily destroying the forestry that surrounded them with mere flicks of his tail. You're one to talk, Jiraiya. How dare you? Jiraiya-chan is a perfectly nice boy. Shima screeched at the giant serpent whilst Fukasaku added, Indeed, scoundrel. Furious, the toad elders formed ram hand seals and channeled chakra into Jiraiya's scalp. Jiraiya's hair grew in volume and spikiness thanks to Ma and Pa's influence, embedding his hair with sage energy as Jiraiya aimed at Orochimaru. Senpo, Kabari Simban, a shower of hair needles pelted Orochimaru. As a testament to the power of the technique, the needles that bounced off Orochimaru's iron-hard scales and ricocheted in random directions easily penetrated boulders and drove through trees. Gah! Orochimaru exclaimed with frustration. Such useless techniques will not work against me, fools! My scales are impenetrable. Orochimaru's massive mouth widened and a wave of acid flew at Jiraiya. The sage did not move, confident in his companion's skill as Ma and Pa went through a string of hand seals and their cheeks swelled up. Senpo, Futon Sunabakori. Concentrated jets of wind erupted from their mouths, easily blowing away the acidic substance, redirecting and casting some of it on Orochimaru's scales and in his eyes, causing the serpent to scream and trash with pain and fury. Jiraiya-chan, go now, they said in unison. You got it! Jiraiya blitzed forward and jumped high into the air above Orochimaru, who continued to trash as his eyes regenerated from the damage done by the acid. Ma-Pa and Jiraiya simultaneously went through a string of hand seals as Jiraiya continued to soar to the sky, positively propelled by the sage energy. Senpo, Gomen, the three shouted in unison as they collaborated their efforts. Jiraiya spat a stream of oil, Ma fire and Pa wind. The results were spectacular. A truly terrifying sight to behold, Jiraiya thought as he stuck to a tree as the three of them contained their jutsu in a concentrated stream form to minimize the widespread damage the technique would have otherwise caused. As the three elements combined, they formed a single jet of oil at a temperature of 1,000 degrees. The superheated oil jet was like an inferno of such magnitude, leaves got caught on fire by mere proximity. Orochimaru's screams were terrible, louder than any Jiraiya had ever heard before. The sage rarely resorted to using this technique, but on the 1 or 2 occasions he had used it in battle, his victims were dead before they could even feel the pain of their bodies dissolving like a block of butter in a tub of acid. Orochimaru did not have that luxury, however, as his scales proved to be so incredibly tough. As Orochimaru screamed, Jiraiya felt a twinge of pity for his former ally. He had not wanted to use this technique, but the battle had raged on long enough. Unlike the serpent, his body was all natural and tired much faster. The great white serpent form began to recede, Jiraiya could tell. The sage released his chakra grip on the tree and dropped down the tree's 30 feet height like it was nothing. The Gomen had sunk through the earth itself and was nowhere to be seen. Steam expelled from the crevices, obscuring his view. Jiraiya didn't need his eyes though. His sage mode allowed him to sense all living things within a few hundred feet radius. Perhaps more if he took the time to perfect his technique someday. Jiraiya calmly moved to the location of the foulest source he could feel, which was undoubtedly Orochimaru. Even if he was alive, Jiraiya doubted the serpent could put up much of a fight. Be careful, Jiraiya-chan, Shima warned him, a disturbed expression on her face. Something doesn't feel right, Fukasaku added with a nod. Jiraiya formed a hand seal and blew a strong gust of air. It wasn't his element, but even the basic wind manipulation was strengthened by his sage energy. Ugh, Jiraiya made a distasteful noise as he found his old ally glaring at him. The serpent was naked. His skin was covered in green fluids as he emerged out of his former body, now a mere heap of skin. Ninpo, Kodo Seze, Orochimaru breathed raggedly. His chakra levels had dropped considerably, Jiraiya could tell. Not only had he been in pure agony and on the verge of dying, he had to force all of his chakra in this last-ditch effort. Ace in the hole. You've won this round, Jiraiya, but we will meet again, Orochimaru vowed with nothing but deep, unadulterated hatred in his eyes. No, we won't, Jiraiya replied coldly as he approached him to deal the killing blow. Orochimaru would not be able to dodge him at this speed, not with his near bout with fatality, or so he thought. Out of nowhere, Orochimaru leaped forward and transformed into an actual snake, a rare white serpent, 10 feet long and 2 feet wide, and dug deep into the ground with such speed Jiraiya could hardly believe he had it in him. After him, Jiraiya. He's heading back to the others, Fukasaku informed, his eyes closed as he traced Orochimaru's foul life signature. What are you waiting for? Go! Shima added. Right. Oh, Tsunade versus Kabuto. Tsunade lightly danced around the battlefield as Kabuto rushed after her with dual kunai, lunging left, right and center with an ever-increasing frustration and far more difficulty than he had ever experienced. Tsunade had a sadistic streak he wished he had not provoked in her. Her body pathway derangement technique, the Ranshinsho, had messed up his body's entire nervous system with a lightning chakra charge chopped to the back of his neck. Though with his genius intellect, it only took him a few minutes to figure out how to move his body again. Kabuto couldn't muster enough chakra control to activate his Chakura Mezu and thus had to resort to using his weapons. Oh, how he regretted toying around with her assistant. Why hadn't he killed her and the Sannin when he had the chance? Kabuto regretted his arrogance now. Tsunade kept dodging his attacks effortlessly with her resurfaced abilities. Every now and then she would counter him, not with her mountain-crushing punches, but with strategic blows to his body to inflict great pain without knocking him out. Though his body would still automatically heal him for as long as there was chakra in his reserves, this also meant he would be put through far more pain until he could no longer heal. Time to end this, Tsunade said as she came to a sudden stop and snatched his wrists. Enough playing around. She applied enough pressure to break them like twigs and forced him drop his elongated kunai. Kabuto screamed. I'll kill you! Tsunade shut him up with a fierce headbutt. Kabuto gasped in pain and Tsunade raised her leg as he fell backwards, kicking him in the chin with enough force to rocket him to the sky. She followed him, jumping high into the air and raising her leg once more for the final blow. Tsukenkyaku! All of Kabuto's organs ruptured under the crushing blow of Tsunade's heel as she drove it down. His bones broke and healed almost instantly, and then broke again as he plummeted into ground, forming a massive crater. Boom! Tsunade landed lightly on her feet and frowned. You're still alive? She sounded genuinely surprised when she heard him groaning pitifully. With a swipe of her hand, the dirt cloud no longer obscured her vision as she descended the crater. Kabuto was a bloody, mangled mess. He looked like he had jumped on top of several explosive tags. With a mere glance, Tsunade detected the nature of his injuries. His Inu Shometsu had focused on restoring his vital organs, but ran out of chakra, thus leaving the rest of his body badly broken. Serves you right, she thought. Chakura Mezu, Tsunade's hand flared with a scalpel formed out of chakra. I suppose the kinder thing to do now would be to put you out of your misery. Just as she approached the dying prodigy to kill him, a massive snake erupted from the ground. Tsunade did a double take as she recognized Orochimaru's eyes on the snake. Orochimaru? Tsunade exclaimed. Orochimaru's mouth widened in his snake form and swallowed Kabuto whole, who smiled faintly at Tsunade, probably vowing revenge someday. Then the snake transformed into Orochimaru, still naked and his hair slick with green fluids. You will regret this, Tsunade. Mark my words. I will have my revenge. That's fine by me, Orochimaru. Tsunade declared, pointing her finger at him with a hand on her hip. And I will take you on as many times as you want. I will never permit you to harm any Konoha shinobi anymore, for I am the Godame Hokage of Konohagaku no Sato, like my grandfather, granduncle and our sensei before me. Their legacy lives on in me, Orochimaru. She smiled, thinking of a certain blonde Chunin, and it will one day live in the child behind me. For as long as their will of fire lives on in the next generation, you will never win, Orochimaru. We will see about that, Tsunade. Orochimaru snarled with fury. Mark my words. He screamed at her, jumping high into the air and delving into the ground as he transformed into his snake form. Tsunade made a move to apprehend the snake that was now Orochimaru, but the slippery reptile dug deep into the ground and disappeared. She sensed him reappear many feet away, widening his mouth again to swallow a barely conscious Sasaki. What the Tsunade's eyes narrowed as she looked to her left, sensing Jiraiya closing in rapidly. Her eyes widened at the sight of him soaring to the air in his sage mode. Thud! Jiraiya landed in a toad-like fashion. The earth formed a deep impression under his hands and feet. Damn it, he got away. It's okay, Jiraiya-chan, Shima told him comfortingly. Fukasaku nodded, albeit more conflicted with the notion of letting Orochimaru go. Another time perhaps, son. Jiraiya? Tsunade asked, shocked with the sage's appearance. You managed to beat him, huh? Oh, so this is the girl you've been talking about all this time, Jiraiya-chan? Ooh, she is beautiful. A little young though, don't you think? Shima smiled at an unnerved Tsunade. Now's not the time, ma. Jiraiya's sweat dropped. Nonsense, the snake got away, Fukasaku interjected. My word. Is that Gamabunta-kun over there, fighting Manda? Those two never did get along very well. Jiraiya nodded and then turned to Tsunade with a smile. So you've finally gotten over your fear of blood, huh? She nodded but did not elaborate, prompting Jiraiya to ask, what happened? Tsunade smiled with a glance over her shoulder at Akatsuki's clone, Shizen and Naruto. He did. Yeah, he tends to have that effect on people, Jiraiya laughed. To his amazement, Tsunade joined him. The two laughed for what seemed forever. Now, there wasn't anything inherently funny about the situation, but that didn't stop them. It had been far too long since they laughed together, too long since they enjoyed each other's company like this. I'll accept the job, Jiraiya, Tsunade said with a nod as she smiled. She seemed content with her decision, as though it was something she knew she was destined to do. You were right after all. About what? Jiraiya asked, though he had a pretty good idea. Everything, she replied much to his pleasure. About the kid, our bet, and even the part about you being a lousy Kage. Jiraiya gave her a comically dry look. She laughed at his stupidity. You were especially right about that kid. Uzumaki Naruto. He's exactly like them. Like Nawaki and Dan? She nodded. And every bit like his mother. Jiraiya gave her a questionable look, and she shook her head. He may be a spitting image of his father, Jiraiya, but he takes after his mother. I guess you're right, Jiraiya admitted with a thoughtful expression. He then addressed the toads. Thanks for the help, Ma Pa. The coast is all clear. Now you make sure you stay away from that boy, Jiraiya-chan, Shima said sternly in a motherly fashion. Oh, stop smothering him, will you, woman? Fukasaku said to his wife. It's clearly that other's boy's fault. We ought to talk to his parents. I'm 50 years old, Ma Pa. Jiraiya replied indignantly as the two toads bickered amongst themselves about Jiraiya's poor life decisions. Tsunade laughed at Jiraiya's expense as he was forced to revert to his regular appearance on his own whilst Ma and Pa continued to argue, sniping at one another on his shoulders. Is that who I think it is? Fukasaku asked a moment later, motioning towards the unconscious blonde. Well, if it isn't Minato Jr., Shima croaked happily. You must introduce him to us sometime. Bring him over and I'll cook you a nice meal. Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, we must be going now. Take care, you too. Fukasaku and Shima formed identical hand seals and disappeared with two tiny pillars of smoke. Poof! Poof! Katsuyu, how's the kid? Tsunade asked her summon. He's in stable condition, Tsunade-sama, replied the miniature copy of Katsuyu. Though you may want to run some diagnostics sometime soon. Tsunade nodded to her summon. Will do. Are Gamabunta and Manda still going at it? No, Tsunade-sama, the summon informed. Once I stopped them fighting, Manda swallowed the remains of his son and disappeared. Gamabunta and Gamahiro also returned home once I was done healing them. Good. You can leave now, said the Godame. Thank you for help. It was my pleasure, Tsunade-sama. Katsuyu bowed her head low. Till next time. She then disappeared by means of reverse summoning, returning to wherever she had come from. Poof! Tsunade stooped by Naruto and sighed. This belongs to you now, brat. Look after it. She took off her necklace, the very same that had once belonged to her grandfather, the Shodai Hokage of Konoha, and lifted Naruto's head to place it on him. If you lose it, you'll be in big trouble. For a moment, Tsunade could not discern between the blonde and her little brother. She subconsciously pushed back locks she deep down knew ought to be brown, not blonde. Ah, isn't that sweet? Jiraiya sniggered at her rare tender display of emotion. I thought you hated kids. Shut up, Jiraiya, Tsunade barked at him, snapping back into reality. Why don't you revert back to your other form? You looked a lot less hideous like that. Jiraiya's smile faltered, he looked hurt. That's cold. So is the ice pack you'll be putting on your special place if you don't shut the hell up. Feisty. Jiraiya challenged. It's a real contrast to your bedroom behavior, Tsunade-heim. The following moments Jiraiya spent running for his dear life as Tsunade chased him down and hurled chunks of earth at him whilst Shizen looked after Naruto with a dry look on her face as though she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Oh, 2 days later, Naruto woke up days later in the middle of the day. He found himself to be in one of Tanzakagai's many inns, lying in a bed and strapped to an 4-drip. Shizen had her back turned to him as she flipped the pages in a medical book. Naruto groaned, feeling oddly stiff as Shizen looked over her shoulder at him with a kind smile. Oh good, you're up, she said. How long have I been out for? Naruto asked as he tried to recall his memories of what happened. He felt something unfamiliar around his neck, and looking down he saw the Shodai's necklace hanging around his neck. It jogged his memories somewhat as Naruto remembered fighting Kabuto and using the rasengan on him. What happened? We had to put you in a medically induced coma, Shizen revealed as she poured a glass of water. Don't worry, she added quickly in response to Naruto's wide-eyed expression. When you attacked Kabuto with your rasengan, he managed to strike you in the heart with a chakra scalpel. He severed several tendons, which stopped your heart from beating and made it impossible for you to breathe. We managed to repair the damage easily enough, fortunately. Then why did you put me in a coma? Naruto asked, confused with the situation he had just woken up to. He could feel a headache coming. Shizen smiled reassuringly. Jiraiya suggested it. He knew you wouldn't remain in bed for several days on end whilst your wounds healed. 1. Tsunade put you in a coma and performed several body vitalising jutsu on you to quicken the process. I have been checking up on you ever since we moved you here. Thank you, Naruto said with genuine gratitude and a twinge of guilt for putting her at such discomfort for his own sake. Shizen waved him off. It's no problem, Naruto-kun. It's actually rather nice to be doing something with medical ninjutsu skills other than curing hangovers or stomach aches. Speaking of which, Naruto lied back down. He felt a mixture of both hunger and nausea. What happened? Naruto asked as Shizen moved over, having noticed his discomfort and sitting on the stool next to his bed, green chakra covering her hand. She ran a diagnostic jutsu with her mythical palm jutsu for a moment. Well, after you passed out, Tsunade regained her senses and finished off Kabuto. He had some kit of medical ninjutsu that healed his wound almost instantly. It was the reason why he managed to do you some damage in return, Shizen hurriedly added as she saw Naruto frown with confusion. It seemed to only upset Naruto as he looked angry with himself over having been defeated even after using his strongest technique. You have absolutely no reason to be disappointed with yourself, Naruto-kun. I may not look it, but I am actually a real Konoha Jonin and I couldn't beat him either. You did tremendous though. You managed to do that much damage after beating your own opponent. I had help, Naruto interjected, though he did not elaborate, thus Shizen did not press the matter. What about Gamahiro-chan? Naruto asked, feeling some shame he did not ask about his familiar sooner. Gamahiro-san is fine. He managed to kill Manda's son before he left. According to Katsuyu-san, Tsunade's own summon, she explained. Gamahiro-san had some injuries but managed to win at the end. He returned to his home after Katsuyu healed him. Naruto nodded his head and leaned back, groaning as Shizen's green chakra lifted the nauseous feeling in his stomach. I'm guessing Ero-sennin dealt with Orochimaru? Naruto inferred, to which nodded. Neither Tsunade or myself saw it, but Orochimaru was on the retreat. He came back to retrieve Kabuto and the other. Yes, I believe your opponent was alive, Naruto-kun. Great, Naruto said sarcastically. I should have made sure he was dead, but you chose to save us instead, and for that I am grateful, as is Tsunade-sama, Shizen reminded him. I could have at least sent a clone. Naruto grumbled, but Shizen shook her head at the notion. There was no time, she said firmly. You did what you thought was right. Even if he survived, you still beat him, Naruto-kun. No one can take that away from you. Naruto smiled slightly. She had a knack for reassuring people, it seemed. Then what happened? Shizen's green healing chakra disappeared and she sat up straight on the stool. I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, as I hardly believe it myself, but apparently Tsunade has accepted the position of Hokage. What? Naruto sat up so fast the nausea came back with a vengeance. He fought of the urge to hurl, forcing him to concentrate on Shizen. Hokage? Her of all people? Well, she is the Shodai's granddaughter and the Nidame's grandniece, Shizen offered kindly. Didn't you know that? She inquired as a look of shock settled on Naruto's face. No, I didn't. Naruto then facepalmed as he came to a realization. Of course she is. Why else would she have the Shodai's necklace? Naruto held the emerald in his hand, noting he felt an odd pulse. He quickly dismissed it, crediting the pulsation to his nausea as it disappeared and did not reappear when Naruto let go and held it again. Strange. Naruto shook his head, focusing at the matter at hand. Hold on, I thought she didn't want anything to do with Konoha. What, with her attitude towards us, the old man, the idea of returning with us to Konoha? What changed her mind? You did, Shizen replied, smiling kindly at him. You are very much like them, you know. Having no idea whom she was referring to, Naruto could only reply with an intelligent, huh? Then realizing what she was saying, Naruto gave her an incredulous look. Me? What did I do? Shizen's kind smile was beginning to irk him a little. You restored her faith in people, Naruto-kun. She chuckled a little. Years ago, Tsunade-sama's younger brother, Nawaki, died. He was about your age, perhaps a little younger. His dream was to become Hokage like his grandfather and granduncle, but, her smile turned faint and mirthless, he died on his first mission. Tsunade-sama had forbidden him to fight in the war, but he signed up to be a messenger behind her back and died a horrible death. It changed her forever. His body was so torn up all they could retrieve was the very same necklace you are wearing right now. Naruto was wide-eyed by now, but did not interrupt, allowing Shizen to continue. Then she met my uncle Dan. Like Nawaki, he too wanted to become Hokage to protect his friends. I imagine Tsunade-sama was taken with him as they fell in love. She decided to give him the necklace her beloved brother Nawaki had worn. For a while she was happy, but it didn't last, unfortunately. Dan died on the battlefield not long after receiving the necklace. There weren't enough trained medical shinobi available, despite Tsunade-sama's months of campaigning for more funds on training medical shinobi after Nawaki died. By the time Tsunade-sama arrived, Dan was too far gone. Shizen appeared to be on the verge of tears. Naruto wanted to comfort her, but she shook her head as she regained her composure. He died in her arms, and Tsunade-sama blamed herself. It wasn't her fault, of course, but I think she believed she had caused his death by giving him the Shodai's necklace. After all those who worn it died at a young age, including the Shodai himself. It convinced Tsunade-sama the necklace was cursed, so she decided to wear it for the rest of her life. She gave up on believing in people. Naruto's expression was unreadable as he mulled over what he had just learned. So that's why she's this way, Naruto thought to himself. She's just as damaged as Jiraiya. Hell, they all are. Her, Jiraiya, or Orochimaru. They're all just equally as damaged. Naruto came to a second realization as he pulled the blankets of him. I'm feeling much better, Naruto assured her, noticing he was wearing his boxers and shirt. I have something to do. Naruto found the rest of his clothes neatly folded in a chair nearby and pulled on his trousers and sandals. Thanks again, Shizen-nichan. He shouted as he exited the room, leaving Shizen confused. Naruto-kun? Naruto didn't reply and ran down the road just as the sun was going down. He knew exactly where to go. Elsewhere in Tanzakagai, Jiraiya and Tsunade were seated by the same and they were last time. The damage had been repaired over the past few days. The two Sannin were conversing with unusual smiles on their faces, looking awfully friendly with one another and seated much closer than usual. They continued to talk at low tones as other patrons looked on, some smiling amongst them. Jiraiya placed his hands on Tsunade's and raised his eyebrows suggestively, and leaned in to whisper something in the ear. Tsunade smiled and stood up, taking his hand in hers and leading the way. As the Sannin moved the exit, they heard a familiar voice shouting outside. Rasengan! Naruto came crashing through the side of the building, needlessly creating another entrance as he destroyed part of the building with his rasengan. There you are! He shouted, pointing an angry finger at the Sannin. Hey! What the hell is wrong with you three? I just fixed up the place. The bar owner shouted at Naruto with a high-pitched voice. He was joined by several of his patrons as Jiraiya's sweat dropped with embarrassment at his student's idiocy, and Tsunade face-palmed. Yeah, what's the big ideal, you little shit? You made me spill my drink, asshole. Isn't it your fucking bedtime, you midget bastard? Get out of here! A vein popped up on Naruto's temple at the last remark. Shut up. I apologize for nothing, Naruto declared, unrepentant as he continued to point an angry finger at Tsunade. Hey, Granny, what's the big idea, huh? Now a vein popped up on Tsunade's cheek as her eye twitched, and she raised an angry fist. What was that, you impudent brat? This necklace! Naruto shouted, pointing to the Shodai's pendant. It's cursed. Are you trying to get me killed? Well, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. What was that? Tsunade shouted back. That's it. You and me, outside. Right now, my thoughts exactly. Naruto stormed outside, followed by an irate Tsunade and an apologetic Jiraiya who threw a wad of cash at the bar owner and rubbed the back of his head as he shouted many apologies. Outside, Naruto and Tsunade stood opposite one another in the dirt road, staring each other down with equally contemptuous expression as though they were in some cliched Western movie. There will be no mercy for you this time, brat. Tsunade crackled her knuckles menacingly. I'm going to teach you some manners. Naruto flipped her off childishly. Yeah? Just make sure you don't pop a hip or something, Onababa. Tsunade let out a shrill shriek at the insult, not taking kindly to being called a demon hag by her fellow blonde. That is it. I will yend you. Yeah, I figured you'd say that, Granny. Naruto shot back, hooking the Shodai's necklace on his thumb. What, with you trying to have me killed with this demonic object? Demonic object? Tsunade repeated, more veins popping up on her face. That is the Shodai's necklace, you little shit. Jiraiya began to sweat bullets from the sidelines. Oh boy, Naruto, you better watch out, he shouted as Tsunade charged at the youth. Naruto charged right back at her with a battle cry. He jumped over her initially punch, but was caught by a powerful high kick that sent him crashing to the ground and bouncing painfully into a vendor stall. Tsunade was holding back, that much was clear, but it still hurt more than usual. He scrambled to his feet as Tsunade jumped high in the air and brought down her kick in an axe kick. Tsukenkyaku. A crater formed where Naruto had just sat, and he counted his lucky stars for making it out of there on time. Holy shit! Naruto went through a string of hand seals rapidly, albeit slower than what he was usually capable of as he felt sluggish. He did just awake from a coma after all. Doton, Doria Taiga. Naruto sunk his fingers into the dirt and sent a wave of mud crashing against Tsunade, pushing her back a few feet before she had enough and punched the ground with her monstrous strength, sealing the mud in a crevice. I hate that jutsu. Tsunade growled as she charged at him. Naruto dashed to the right, dodging a fist that crushed the ground. He pushed himself over her shoulders and aimed a roundhouse kick. Bad idea, as it turned out. Tsunade easily grabbed his ankle and swung him around like a ragdoll. You're 100 years early to try and challenge me in taijutsu, whelp. The Godame launched the young Jinchuriki head first into another building, a small bed and breakfast by the look of it. Naruto groaned painfully, reminded of his bout with Gantetsu a few weeks before in the very same city. Tsunade allowed him no reprieve as she grabbed him by the foot again and raised him upside down. Ready to apologize yet, brat? She demanded. Her eyes narrowed as she felt her grip loosen and tighten in an instant. The Naruto she now had in her grip was a clone the original had substituted with, a clone which started to glow brightly, as if. Tsunade swung the clone in the direction of the real Naruto, who she sensed to be a few feet to her right. Naruto's eyes widened as his own clone came flying at him. Oh fu! Boom! Smoke billowed from the now destroyed establishment as Tsunade emerged with an irate expression. Where did he go? She demanded with an angry look at Jiraiya. What, he escaped that? Jiraiya said incredulously. He gave a low whistle at the notion. He's getting fast. Hiya! Naruto emerged from the smoke, jumping high in the air with a rasengan in his hand, aimed for turned Tsunade. You're mine! Tsunade's eyes narrowed. Jiraiya disappeared with a shunshin just as she turned around to face Naruto, who flew at her with his drilling blue orb of chakra. Boom! Cling! Jiraiya's eyes widened as the second smoke cloud blew past. He found Tsunade towering over Naruto, a single finger aimed to the sky, pointing to the headband she had just sent flying with a flick. For a moment Naruto looked shocked, but then he grinned at her. What's so funny, brat? Tsunade growled as she caught his headband. You were wrong, he replied simply. You were wrong about the necklace. It isn't cursed. Tsunade's eyes widened. How did you? I'm going to be the Hokage one day, Bakon, and I'm going to do it wearing this necklace. Naruto declared with unwavering conviction and determination in his eyes as he looked into hers. I just went up against an S-rank shinobi, and I'm still breathing. If the necklace really was cursed, I would have been dead by now, wouldn't I? Tsunade opened her mouth, but no reply came. After a long moment of silence, she smiled. She then leaned in and planted a kiss on Naruto's forehead. I'll take you up on that bet, Tsunade said as she leaned back. Naruto had a light blush on his cheeks but nodded nonetheless. You got it. Oh. Days later, Konoha no Sato. It was hard not to notice all the stares of villagers and shinobi alike as they passed the village gates. Perhaps seeing two of the greatest shinobi ever produced walk side by side along with Naruto, Shizen and Tenten, Tsunade's pet pig, was a bigger deal than he realized. Welcome back, Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama. Several shinobi and villagers greeted as they walked down the road. Naruto scratched his cheek, feeling somewhat giddy he was finally home again. Oh man, I am dying for some Ichirakas, he exclaimed. You glutton, Tsunade remarked. You want to watch your weight, Naruto-chan. It's bad enough to be a midget. You don't want to be a fat midget. Naruto twitched at that. Yeah, well that's not surprising coming from an old lady who needs her meals put in a blender before she can eat it. Tell me, does Shizen-nichan cut up your meat for your? What was that? Tsunade challenged, raising her fist angrily Naruto, whilst Jiraiya tried to hold her back in a full Nelson. You want another beating, brat? You'll be eating through a straw when I'm done with you. Naruto returned her sneer, electricity jumping from their eyes as they glared at each other. You're not Hokage yet, Tsunade Bakon. I can still kick your ass and get away it. No, he couldn't. Naruto couldn't so much as land a straight punch on Tsunade at the level he was, regardless whether Tsunade hadn't actually fought in years. The difference in their strength was just that profound. He couldn't beat her in his wildest dreams, but that didn't stop him from claiming otherwise though. Kick my ass? Tsunade laughed loudly at the foolish notion as they continued to walk down the road towards the Sarutobi compound. Ha! You're 1,000 years to even begin dreaming about that. I thought ladies didn't like divulging their ages, Naruto shot back childishly. Oh, you poor fool, Naruto, Jiraiya and Shizen thought. Even Tenten squealed in warning of danger as fire burned in Tsunade's eyes. Naruto felt the wave of killing intent crash into him as Tsunade raised her fist angrily and screamed, "That is it!" Naruto's screams resounded through the village as Tsunade mercilessly pummeled him. Oh, Sarutobi compound. Naruto's face was still swollen by the time they got to the Sarutobi compound. Perhaps the blasted fox amused itself at his expense, Naruto thought, as his wounds had barely healed since. Achi! Naruto hissed as he felt his cheek. His cheekbone was broken. Oh, quite your whimpering, those were love taps. Tsunade berated him. Scandalized, Naruto turned to her so fast his neck nearly snapped. Love taps? He repeated in a high-pitched voice. You nearly killed me. I'm still injured, you know. Someone should revoke your medical license. Tsunade looked around with an embarrassed flush and hissed at him. Quit your whining and stop being so loud. You're embarrassing us. I'm being loud? You're being loud. They continued to bicker and argue as Jiraiya and Shizen lead them into the compound, where they were greeted by several Sarutobi clan members. Naruto had been here before and recognized many of the Sarutobi clansmen he had met as a child. The compound was much smaller than the other clan compounds in the village, Naruto knew. The Sarutobi clan was one of the smaller clans after all, hence their modestly sized compound, which was built in a very traditional architecture style reminiscent of old Japanese-styled castles. They exchanged a few pleasantries with several Sarutobi clansmen before they were admitted inside and led to Hiruzen's room. Naruto pulled aside the slide door as they reached the room and peered inside, with a hand held up in greeting. Inside the room laid Sarutobi Hiruzen, asleep and hooked to several machines. At the foot of his bed Sarutobi Asuma and the Dr. Naruto had met before several weeks ago holding a clipboard in his hand. Easily most notable was the massive, white-haired ape seated next to Hiruzen's bed in meditative position. Upon the door opening, all three looked up. Tsunade-sama, how good to see you, said the doctor, relief clearly audible his voice. Shizen, how have you been? Asuma greeted his old teammate as they entered the room. 2. He gave a respectful head bow to Jiraiya and Tsunade. I'm glad you guys are here. Father has been circling in the drain. The ape, clearly a summon, smiled with relief. Hello there, Tsunade. It certainly has been a while. Enma? Tsunade exclaimed with childlike joy. She grinned at the Monkey King. How have you been? It's been so long. Naruto's sweat dropped. Why is she so cheery? He wondered out loud. Jiraiya leaned over, covering his hand with his mouth and whispered, That's Enma the Monkey King. He's the old man's personal summon. When we were kids, we used to train with him. Tsunade really took to him, more than me and Orochimaru. Ahu, interesting. It wasn't particularly, but Naruto nodded his head nonetheless. It's a pleasure to meet you, Enma-chan, Naruto said affectionately, offering the Monkey King a handshake. This was the old man's summon he was talking to, and if the rumors were true, the ape had the old man's back in his bout with Orochimaru. Enma smiled kindly at Naruto and covered his hand with his own. You don't remember me, do you, child? Remember you? Naruto looked confused. Have we met before? He gave Enma a good look over, fully taking in the ape's appearance. Enma's body was covered by white fur which protruded from his sleeves and pants. He had long white hair and sideburns as well as a goatee. He wore a black suit with mesh armor underneath, over which he wore a sleeveless kimono shirt with white trimmings and markings reminiscent of tiger stripes on it, held closed by a sash. Enma also wore Konoha headband, something Naruto had never seen before on a summon. Naruto scratched his head. I guess you kind of look familiar, but I'm not sure. It was true. There was something distantly familiar about the Monkey King, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Enma nodded and gave an apish smile that revealed his sharp teeth. I suppose you wouldn't recognize me. You were only an infant after all. Hiruzen Dano would summon me to look over you in his office when you were but a newborn, Enma elaborated. I must say, I am quite surprised you seem to recognize me, if only a little. Naruto smiled unsure of what to say. Luckily Jiraiya reminded them why they were all here. There'll be time for catching up later, the sage said. Tsunadeheim, you'll probably want to get to work. That's right, she nodded. Shizen and I will need our space, she said dismissively. You can stay and help us out if you want, she then said to the doctor, who nodded. Of course, I will remain by Hiruzen Dano's side, replied Enma, who jumped out of his seating position and hung upside down from the ceiling. Do not mind my presence. Naruto, Asuma and Jiraiya exited the room and stood in the hall conversing moments later. Hey, Asuma-sensei, what's Shikamaru been up to? Naruto asked the chain-smoking Jonin. He hadn't had time to inform his team of his absence when he left the village with Jiraiya. Thus Naruto wondered what his team had been up to since he left. Asuma looked at him briefly as though curious about something. Then he realized the older man was eyeing the necklace hanging around his neck. I haven't seen Shikamaru all that much lately, but the last time I did see him he was on his way to the countryside for a mission. When was this? Over a week ago, Asuma revealed with a shrug. The Jonin took the unlit cigarette out of his mouth and looked it over in his hand. I'm going to smoke this outside. I'll see you guys later. You go ahead, I'll hang back around here for a while, Jiraiya replied with a glance over his shoulder to the closed doors. And don't forget you have to get your medical cleared tomorrow. Tsunade will know if you haven't gotten it done yet, believe me, I've been there and it's not pretty. You renege on anything medical she told you to do, and you're looking at a colonoscopy, kid. A colonoscopy. Naruto shuddered at the thought. Yeah, I'll go tomorrow. Which reminds me, I need to pick up my paycheck in the morning. A ranked mission, my ass, Naruto grumbled as he walked off, leaving a bemused Jiraiya listening to his rants as he walked. Simple retrieve mission, as if, I got nearly killed 3 times, and one of those times by the old hag I was supposed to be bringing back. Chapter 9, Never Quiet. Oto no Kuni, Otogekure Gates. In the country formerly known as Ta no Kuni, or Rice Country, before he conquered it and convinced the daimyo to change the name, Orochimaru passed the gates of the Hidden Sound village. In actuality, Otogekure was not a single village, but rather several smaller bases spread across several countries, with the main base stationed in Oto no Kuni. It was a safer and much more efficient way of doing business, allowing them to usurp business all over the world, whilst at the same time keeping them safe from larger villages that would want to crush them. Which, at the moment, was more or less every village of significance. This particular base, though, was the original base of Otogekure and the one Orochimaru occupied the most, leading it to be recognized as the main base. Orochimaru stalked onwards with a limp, but no less purposefully as he snarled. His expression was that of rage. His eyes were set in a seeming permanent look of hatred. As soon as they had seen him approach, his shinobi forces immediately prepared to open the tall, impossible to scale, iron-wrought gates. His welcoming committee stepped aside in neat rows, giving birth to the entrance. Welcome back, Orochimaru-sama, his Jonin commander greeted, stepping out of line and kneeling respectfully as Orochimaru walked past him. You couldn't have come at a better time, the Oto shinobi said as he got to his feet and caught up with the self-proclaimed Otokage. We have received word of an outbreak of test subjects at Base 7. The scientists in charge have called for assistance. They claim many of the test subjects have exhibited strange reactions to your Juinjutsu. Latest reports reveal they have taken over the Not now! Orochimaru snarled with annoyance, killing intent exploding with fury. Many of his subordinates could hardly breathe and fell to their knees or stumbled back in fear. Have the Shien clan send a team of their best with the exception of Taiyuya 1. Their flutes will calm down and subjugate the subjects, then send word to Gurin to leave Base 9 and aid them with a team of her own. She will know what to do. In the meanwhile, take care of these 2 fools. Orochimaru's mouth widened in a sickening fashion, stretching at least 6 feet wide as he made retching noises, followed by green fluid-covered Kabuto and Sasaki. They were dropped unceremoniously in front of the Jonin commander, who jumped back immediately. Under normal circumstances, I would have them both killed, but they are far too valuable. I have put them in a meditative state to begin their recovery. See to it they are brought to the medical bay. Orochimaru promptly stalked off to the square, 5 stories building where he usually resided. The serpent's subconscious fiddled with the slate blue ring on his right hand, the ring given to him in his time with Akatsuki. His face contorted with rage. Perhaps he was better of returning the ring to those fools. They were becoming increasingly meddling with his shinobi forces. Already they had destroyed several of his strongholds in their campaign to locate him. In particular, Zetsu had come close to killing him the last time they encountered. Oh, Hai no Kuni, Konohagakure Hospital. Scuffling noises and yelps sounded from a certain room in Konohagakure's hospital, followed by a patient voice, though progressively weary with mild irritation. Naruto silently cursed Tsunade for making him have this physical. They were an hour in already, and no matter how much she poked and prodded, Shizen couldn't find anything wrong with him. Cha! That's cold. Stop squirming, Naruto-kun. This will all be over in a moment, please be patient. Naruto remained seated on the counter as Shizen continued to examine his heartbeat with a stethoscope. She frowned and then looked up at Naruto as though the answer was written on his forehead. Remarkable, she noted in a quiet tone. You've had such severe damage done to your heart, but I detect no irregularities. None whatsoever. It seems you are in perfect health. Naruto grinned. Just one of the perks of being a Jinchuriki, Shizen-ichin, just one of the perks. He jumped out of her reach and pulled off his hospital gown with vigor before she could check again. He hated hospitals and their stupid gowns, and he hated checkups just as much. Looks like I'll have to clear you for going on missions. Shizen ticked a few boxes on her clipboard just as Naruto finished pulling on brown baggy shinobi-styled trousers. It was his day off today, so he decided to forego the usual regulation flak uniform and opt for simpler clothing. I told you I was fine. He did. He must have told her 1,000 times on their way back from Tanzakagai, but neither Shizen nor Tsunade was having any of it. The soon-to-be Godame had actually threatened to order a colonoscopy if he didn't have his physical today. She even had Shizen take time out of her schedule to oversee it herself. It was touching one hand on, irksome and terrifying on another. Tsunade's brand of tough love was tougher than what most men could imagine. Naruto reckoned that even in their youth, she made Orochimaru look like the sweet one. A distasteful mental image of a younger, significantly more androgynous Orochimaru blushing and batting his eyelashes at him made Naruto feel nauseous. He shook his head, forever banishing the thought within seconds. He noticed Shizen was talking to him. Though her lips moved and words come from her mouth, he didn't quite follow. Sorry, what were you saying, Shizen-ichan? Shizen looked mildly irritated, but her kind disposition prevented her from expressing this. We're not done yet, she informed, turning the clipboard for him to see an unanswered question. I need to ask you some questions. It's important you answer them. Alright, sure. Naruto pulled his green short-sleeved shirt with the Konoha emblem on the front and sat back up on her bench. What's she so embarrassed about? Why is she blushing? He thought as he recognized the embarrassed flush on her face. Okay, question 1. Shizen began gingerly. Are you currently sexually active, and if so, how many times a week, month or year, do you engage in intercourse, and with how many partners? Naruto's jaw dropped. Now he was red in the face. What the hell is that got to do with my health? Now, Naruto knew the answer to both questions was 0, but he would be damned if he just went out and said it. In the few weeks he had known her, he had begun to think of her as a sister figure. Nobody told their sister that kind of information. No matter how close you were. I'm going to go ahead and assume the answer is 0, if that's okay with you, Naruto-kun. He didn't like the knowing smile on her face. Apparently his discomfort with the situation had put her more at ease. Fucking terrific. Not for a lack of trying, I hope? Shizen joked with inference. Aren't there any girls your age you find attractive, Naruto-kun? Well, she got over her embarrassment real quick, Naruto noted dryly. Well, of course there are. He could name at least 4 on the spot. I just haven't really had the time to think about, doing anything about it. Shizen was seemingly delighted with his answer at the expense of his embarrassment. If you have any questions about sex, Naruto-kun, I would be glad to answer them. After all, I am knowledgeable in these things. She laughed as his face turned red and he struggled to come up with a comeback. Have you actually ever seen girl naked? Of course he had. Who did she think he was, some prude? Ha! Where did she think he got his inspiration for the sexy no jutsu? Wait, he remembered he hadn't even so much as mentioned that technique. Naruto's sweat dropped with a sense of dread at the notion of Tsunade finding out about that particular jutsu. No, for the sake of his own health, as far as he knew, he had never invented any technique of perverted jutsu. Again, please do remind me why this is relevant to whether or not I can stick a kunai into someone's skull. Naruto looked at Shizen, keeping a straight face as she continued barely restraining herself from laughing. His blank expression didn't seem to help. After a moment of suppressing her amusement, Shizen gave a few dry coughs and exhaled, focusing on answering the question without making fun of the young shinobi in front of her. Well, it all comes down to basic physiology, she stated, instantly going into her medical mode as she began to drone on and on about the subject for a good 15 minutes. Naruto had lost her after about 2. By the end of it, he regretted asking. So you're basically saying, he formulated his question uncertainly as he asked it, that my getting laid can have a direct result on my performance on missions? Yes. How do you think Jiraiya-sama is such a successful shinobi? Shizen nodded with a straight face. It's a well-known fact Jiraiya holds the current record of completing the most missions out of all Konoha shinobi, Shizen added matter-of-factly. She was being a little too serious. You're fucking with me, aren't you? Naruto accused. No, she shook her head, a betraying twitch of her lips failing to convince him. But maybe someone ought to be. Naruto's jaw dropped again. Okay, that's it. I'm out of here. He absolutely hated himself for being so uncomfortable with the subject, but it couldn't be helped. It wasn't as though he actually knew the first thing about sex, and yet, here she was antagonizing him. Naruto-kun, come back. I still have some more questions. Naruto stormed out of the medical examination room, muttering and sputtering inanely about her being crazy and getting back at Tsunade and such. By the time he was out of her reach, Shizen was lurched over, holding her sides as she laughed louder than she had in years. Oh, undisclosed location. A long table was placed in the middle of the spacious, lavishly decorated, albeit poorly lit room. On each side were 5 seats. At the head of the table was a TV screen displaying the daimyo of Haino Kuni. Seated on the left were the daimyo's 5 delegates, all middle-aged men in fine robes. Light emanated from the screen and the spotlights above each individual. The rest was cast in darkness, in which the silent ANBU sentinels remained hidden. On the right side of the table sat Konoha's top brass. The Hokage's advisors and council members Hamura and Koharu sat on the far right. Next to them, in the middle, sat the Jonin commander and overseer of Konoha's strategic departments, Nara Shikaku. To Shikaku's left, in standard issue robe and masked attire, sat the current ANBU commander personal bodyguard to the same dame, Rooster. Next to Rooster, sat the friliest-looking individual yet, an old man with black shaggy hair, and bandages covering his right eye. The man had an X-shaped scar on his chin and wore a white shirt, with a brown robe over top of it covering from his feet to just over his right shoulder. This man was Shimura Danzo, the founder of the ANBU subsidiary Root, and a estranged friend of the Sandame. Good, we are all here, said the daimyo as he waved himself with his intricately decorated, golden fan. I presume my delegates find their accommodations satisfactory? The plump, middle-aged men sat opposite the shinobi nodded, fanning themselves with similar fans. Yes, daimyo-sama, they said almost simultaneously. Undoubtedly, they would be comfortable, on Konoha's Rio no less. The daimyo nodded, clearly disinterested and noticeably displeased he had to be involved in the meeting, as though the electing of a Hokage was beneath him, a topic not worthy enough of taking time out of his schedule to discuss. Let's get this out of the way then, yes? The daimyo drawled impatiently. He gave a heavy sigh as he looked to both sides of the table. As you wish, daimyo-sama. Hamura bowed his head respectfully. Kohara looked to her left and right, and then addressed the daimyo. We have decided to appoint Tsunade of the Sannin to assume the mantle of Hokage and take tenure as the Godame, daimyo-sama. Then she, too, gave a respectful bow of her head. Where is she? One of the plumper and bearded delegates inquired. He appeared to be older than the other delegates. Even his eyebrows were long and gray, half framing his wrinkled face in a weave of gray and spots of black. Yes, drawled the daimyo, still fanning himself lazily. One would think the Hokage would find it prudent to attend this meeting. If I may, Rooster fell in with a look to the others, pausing a moment for interruption. There was no objection, so he continued. Tsunade-sama is unable to attend these proceedings as she is currently electing the new ANBU commander. Rooster, is it? Asked another delegate. He too was plump and old, though noticeably younger than the others. You are the current ANBU commander, are you not? Rooster nodded dogmatically. Then why are you not there, with the others? Tradition dictates the current ANBU commander does not actively pursue continuance, but instead, allows others the opportunity to be elected by the succeeding Hokage. Of course, that is not to say Tsunade-sama cannot offer me continuance, should she take a look at my files and wish for me to continue as ANBU commander, Rooster replied monotonically, without a hint of emotion in his voice as he held the delegate's gaze. Aha, interesting, the daimyo patronized. It clearly wasn't, at least not to him. The daimyo continued to fan himself as he gave an overdramatic sigh of annoyance and anguish. I do wish Jiraiya would reconsider. I would have quite liked him to become the Godame. The daimyo's delegates agreed immediately, murmuring amongst themselves. Kohara looked at them with perfectly veiled contempt. We have offered Jiraiya the mantle many times now, but he has refused each time. Perhaps it is better this way. No, daimyo-sama? What about Hiruzen's son? The daimyo suggested. It was clear that he did not quite like the idea of Tsunade assuming the mantle. What this reason was not lost on the shinobi representatives. As powerful as Tsunade was, and as great as her reputation and lineage may be, she was a woman first and foremost. She would not only be the first female Hokage, but the first female Kage in the history of the great 5 elemental nations. Kohara suppressed a sneer at the feudal lord of Fire Country. Sarutobi Asuma? Who? The daimyo appeared to be confused. Was he the young fellow part of my guard many years ago? Hamura and Kohara nodded simultaneously. Then no. I speak of the other one, the older of the 2 brothers. The delegates looked at one another, sharing glancing and murmuring softly. The shinobi representatives remained silent, though they too looked at each other questioningly. Even Rooster, who shared a single glance with Nara Shikaku, Sarutobi Kane. They all looked at the one who had spoken, the elderly man whose face was partially covered with bandage. Yes, Danzo-san, that's the one, the daimyo nodded slowly. He was a charming man. Quite strong and confident in character. A fine candidate for Hokage, wouldn't you say? He iterated the last part with an pointed look at his delegates. As expected, the Fire Lord's yes-men nodded and said words of agreement almost immediately. Shikaku frowned at them, but made no comment on their behavior. Sarutobi Kane is no longer an active shinobi of Konoha, the Nara clan had reminded them. He left several years ago. We have not heard of him since, not even after his father's illness became public knowledge. Danzo's lone visible eye stared at Shikaku for a moment. There cannot be a worse candidate than Sarutobi Kane, Danzo stated with finality. His voice resounded as an echo in the poorly lit room. The others glanced at him, waiting for him to elaborate. He indulged them. He is as good as a traitor to Konoha as Orochimaru of the Sannin. Have you all forgotten the last time his name was mentioned? How he left the village, speaking of vague notions of purpose? Had it not been for Sarutobi's intervention, our hunter ninja would be out there looking for him as we speak. No, Danzo tapped his cane loudly on the ground. I will not accept him, a traitor to Konoha, as a viable candidate. I will not stand for it. We cannot allow him to return with a clean slate. What message would that send to Konohanin gone rogue? To the rest of the world? Not only does our shinobi village accept Nukenin with open arms, but our daimyo will allow them to become Kage? A tense silence resumed in the room, broken only by the Fire Lord, who did not notice the tension as he was not physically there. The daimyo seemed to be convinced with Danzo's argument. Are there truly no other candidates, then, or must Hai no Kuni become the first of the Great Five to appoint a woman as Kage? She may not be the ideal candidate, but she is capable, Kohara said forcibly, a frown on her wrinkled face. Granddaughter of the Shodai, grandniece of the Naidame, former pupil to the Sandame, last of the Senju and… Yes, I can see that, the Fire Daimyo interrupted, waving her off with disinterest. Are there truly no other candidates? What about Hatake Kakashi, son of the White Fang? Suggested the most senior of the delegates. Sharingan no Kakashi, the son of the man said to be equal in power to the Sannin, and former pupil to the Yandame Hokage. Surely he would make for a fine Hokage? The other delegates threw in their consensus as the daimyo appeared interested. Hamura and Kohara seemed uncertain and shared doubtful glances, whilst Rooster and Shikaku nodded and Danzo bristled once more, though he made no immediate comment. The student of the Yandame, you say? The daimyo repeated. My son adores the Yandame. He collects Hiraishin kunai up until this day. None of the delegates or shinobi representatives were even remotely sure how that was relevant in any way, but did not comment as the daimyo, they knew, could be an unpleasant individual if rubbed the wrong way. I approve. He is skilled enough, Shikaku agreed, with a look at Rooster, who seemed to be the only one on his side as Hamura and Koharu remained doubtful. Rooster nodded confidently. Yes. Hatake Kakashi would make a fine candidate. He has served village and country since he was a child. He was a true prodigy in his day. The ANBU would most definitely support his candidacy. Gee! Danzo bristled with annoyance. Once again we are treating the election of Hokage as a hereditary component. What does it matter who the candidate was taught by, or who they are related to? It is because of this, with the exception of the Shodai, all subsequent Hokage have shown great weakness at various points. His fellow representatives gave him curious looks, but Danzo ignored them, his eyes remaining on the TV screen likeness of their feudal lord. Explain, the daimyo commanded. The Shodai was not known to be a ruthless character, but his kindness manifested in the Naidame, and grew stronger than it had been in him. We all know what happened to the Naidame, do we not? He sacrificed himself in a time of war. Do not misunderstand me, he added with an almost threatening edge as he looked at both the delegates and his fellow shinobi representatives. As one of the few he sacrificed himself for, I am truly grateful for his actions, but no matter how we look at it, on the face of it, appointing in frontline shinobi inexperienced in matters of politics as Kage only moments before sacrificing himself to take down Kumo's Kinkaku squad was a reckless decision. One that could have very well cost us the war and this country, but we won, the daimyo pointed out with a childlike stubbornness. The notion of Hai no Kuni losing a war did not sit well with the feudal lord. That we did, Danzo acknowledged easily. But do you not see how the Naidame's kindness then manifested itself in the Sandame, Sarutobi Hiruzen? He challenged. Sarutobi is undoubtedly the most compassionate Hokage, no Kage, in the history of shinobi world. The cases of Orochimaru and Sarutobi Kane alone are undeniable examples of Sarutobi's weakness. And let me remind you, he gave a panning look of greatness. Orochimaru was the mastermind behind the invasion only months ago. Any other Kage, including the Shodai and the Nidaime, would have killed Orochimaru with their own hands, surrogate son or not, and would have seen to it Sarutobi Kane was executed. Danzo took a short break from his tirade to catch his breath. His age was showing, he could no longer keep up his tirades. It forced him to talk in a slower, more resounding manner. I had hopes for Namikaze. He was the very embodiment of the shinobi way, capable of feats unseen since the Nidaime, but even he showed detrimental compassion on occasion. Why? The root leader asked rhetorically. The answer lies with his teacher, Jiraiya of the Sannin, the very same who was taught by the Sandaime to carry on the Nidaime's foolish notions of kindness and compassion on the battlefield. Danzo looked at all of them defiantly, slamming his cane on the ground again. This weakness must be stopped. We need a Hokage capable of ruthless actions, capable of doing whatever is necessary to protect country and village. We need someone like you? Shikaka interrupted calmly. It is well known you have always resented the Sandaime for being chosen over you, Danzo. You may believe his kindness and compassion are weaknesses, but you seem to forget that Sandaime-sama not only became a war hero in First Great Shinobi War, but lead us to victories in the Great Shinobi Wars that followed. How would you explain these feats, if Hokage-sama is such a weak figure? How would you explain the fact that even though we are still recovering from the invasion, and that by now Hokage-sama's condition is undoubtedly known by the other villages, we are not faced with another attack? I will tell you why, Shikaka clarified. Looking at the daimyo and the delegates, the reason we are not under attack at this very moment is because of Hokage-sama's reputation. You seem to have kindness and respect mixed up, Danzo. It is not because of Hokage-sama's compassion that we are able to continue operations undisturbed by our rival villages. It is because of Hokage-sama's fearsome reputation. A reputation he gained by following the Nidaime's foolish notions. The delegates and the daimyo seemed convinced with Shikaka's argument, but the Nara wasn't finished. Hokage-sama is a great man and he truly embodies the shinobi way. Shikaka gave a pointed look at Danzo. The Nara clan head knew where Danzo was going with this. He served faithfully for over 50 years and carried on the will of fire bestowed upon him by the Shodai and Nidaime, which he passed on to his students who, including Orochimaru for as long as it lasted, served village and country in 2 wars we could not have won without them. Jiraiya-sama's greatest student inherited the will of fire too, and not only was he one of the most gifted shinobi this village has ever produced, he was the youngest shinobi to ever have a flea on sight notice. And like his teacher before him, Namikaze Minato passed it on to his students, of whom only Kakashi survived the Third Great Shinobi War. Shikaka gave pause to allow them to mull over what he had just said. Personally, I believe Tsunade is the best candidate we can hope for, but if not her, then surely Hatake Kakashi would make a great Hokage. Yes, that is quite enough. I am fully convinced, the daimyo announced. Let it be known, then, that Senju Tsunade of the Densetsu no Sannin, the last of Senju, granddaughter to the Shodai, grandniece to the Nidaime and pupil to the Sandaime, is the Godaime Hokage of Konoha no Sato. I see no reason for a probationary period. I trust the inauguration ceremonies are already well on the way. Good. I will personally attend. Yes, Daimyo-sama, your presence will surely illuminate the village, Hamura nodded. Koharu agreed. Indeed, it will boost the morale of your shinobi forces, Daimyo-sama. We look forward to be graced with your presence, Daimyo-sama, Shikaka said with a bow of his head, which his fellow shinobi representatives emulated, including Danzo, albeit begrudgingly as the old war hawk glared at the Nara clan leader. Oh, Hokage Tower. In the Hokage's office, Tsunade sat behind her desk. Kneeled in front of her were 9 masked ANBU officers. They were the best the ANBU had to offer. All of them had served Konoha for numerous years and had accumulated great skill and experience over the length of their career. Spread out on the desk before her were numerous files and folders pertaining to these deadly individuals, detailed accounts of their missions, skill assessments, and so on. For nearly 2 hours, she flipped through the pages, taking in the information and making inquiries of the ANBU officers and learning everything there was to know about them. She had to be thorough with this. Whomever she appointed to become the ANBU commander, and would be directly under her charge. As per the Nidaime's precedent, only the Hokage could appoint, dismiss, and assign ANBU officers. They were her own personal army of assassins, capable of taking over a country if she so wished. As expected, All of them remained quiet and perfectly still as she took her time reading their files at a leisurely pace. It was a test most Kage made use of, even the other Great Five who had emulated Konoha's ANBU regimen. Tsunade would not appoint anyone as impatient as she was, though the odds of any of them to be impatient were non-existent. ANBU operators had notoriously long patience anyway. It was why she never took to the department, unlike Jiraiya and Orochimaru, who had served as operators for quite some time while she worked in the hospital, where she met Dan. Tsunade rose out of her chair and stood in front of her desk with her arms crossed. I have decided, she announced. The ANBU remained as silent and unmoving as they had for the past 2 hours as she learned everything there was to know about them. ANBU Operative 309, codename Cat, though she did not use her real name out loud in front of her fellow operatives, as knowing each other's true identity was forbidden amongst ANBU. Tsunade knew her true name to be Yuzuki Yugao after having read her file. A rank shinobi, 623 missions completed, 95% success record. Tsunade smiled at her, though she knew the ANBU would not smile back, not even from under her mask as she was a true shinobi. On the job, she knew no emotion. I hereby appoint you to ANBU commander. It is as you wish it to be, Hokage-sama, Yugao replied dutifully, with a deeper bow of her head. My life is yours to command, thank you. Tsunade looked at the other operators. They were all skilled enough, reliable enough, experienced enough, but if she were to be the first female Kage, then so would her head of ANBU be the first female ANBU commander. She decided this partially to slight the daimyo, even if the ignorant fool would have no idea or care for who she elected as ANBU commander, and because of her reason. ANBU Officer 174, codename Rooster, will remain as my predecessor's bodyguard. Cat, I expect the revised roster by tomorrow. Yugao gave a dogmatic nod. With the exception of 292, codename Tenzo, you are dismissed. Tsunade eyed the remaining ANBU as the others disappeared, phasing through the ground. Tenzo remained quiet and perfectly still as Tsunade leant on her desk, crossing her arms over her well-endowed chest, and shot him a disarming smile. So, I hear you have an interesting skill set. Oh, Armory Administration Building Floor 0. Naruto went down to the Armory Administration Building's Floor 0, the real one, to thank Shiho for the caltrops, and voice his indignation with Shizen. Perhaps it wasn't his best idea, considering Shiho turned red and was incapable of offering anything other than incoherent babbling and poorly structured sentences. Unfortunately, much to Naruto's dismay and disgust, Giken did have something to add as he sat behind his workbench, his back turned to them as he continued to work on a metallic device of sorts with lengthy, thinner than usual screwdrivers-like tools. Well, when you think about it, it does go back to basic physiology, the mad scientist commented. Orgasms are good for the body. Though, you don't necessarily have to be with a woman or a man, if you happen to swing that way. Naruto turned green in the face at the notion. Lowers the heart rate, releases the endorphins. Basic physiology indeed. I'm sorry, what was your question again? Naruto looked at the older man's back with a blank expression, blinking a few times. Okay, did that just happen? He asked Shiho, who jumped slightly as he addressed her. Did the old man just tell me to, love myself? Well, Uzumaki-san, Shiho took a moment to push her glasses in an attempt to ignore her own discomfort. I do not believe Giken-sensei told you to, but rather, was making an astute observation of the human body. I do not believe he actually cares whether or not you know. Great, now he felt disgusted and insulted. Alright, well it's been nice catching up with you, Shiho-chan. She beamed at the affectionate suffix. I'm going to see a smith or something about a sword I picked up on my last mission. Giken leaned back from his bench, pulling a white cloth over the contraption he was working on, and turned around on his swivel stool. There's no need for you to go through that much trouble, Uzumaki. Give it here, he commanded with a beckoning motion of his hand. Naruto retrieved his sealing scroll and made a hand seal. Kai. With a burst of smoke, the blade he used against Sasaki appeared in his hand. Thanks, old man, I owe you one. The Chunin gave the sword to Giken, who held up in his scrutinizing gaze. Incomplete, that much is obvious, the scientist observed with a few nods. Aha, I believe I can construct a proper guard for it, if you want. Actually, I would like to keep it like it is. I just need a sword sheath to keep it in. It's a lot sharper than it looks. Naruto preferred the makeshift gauze guard of the sword. It was lighter than an actual guard and easier to handle for him. It was also significantly longer than his tanto, which had been little more useful than a kunai when he fought Sasaki due to his limited skill and reach, so he hadn't bothered with it. Which reminds me, Naruto thought. Giken-sensei, can you tell me what kind of sword it is? The old man looked at the sword with closer scrutiny. I had my doubts for a moment, he said with a vague nod, but this sword is undoubtedly a kodachi, and a very skillfully forged one at that. It is capable of channeling chakra through it. Where did you find this sword? Naruto raised an eyebrow. I can channel chakra through it? Just answer the question. Giken demanded, short-tempered and as easily irate as always. Were you in Tenten no Kuni when you found this blade? Iron Country? Naruto shook his head. He hadn't even been remotely close to the country. In fact, aside from that one time on his mission to Nami no Kuni, he had never left the High no Kuni. No, Naruto answered. I found a few ronin with it. They kidnapped a girl, so I killed them. I figured I'd collect and sell their gear for some extra ryo. How heroic of you, Uzumaki-san. Shiho praised him with a huge smile and a small cheer. It gave an overall cute effect. What did you do with the other weapons you collected? Nothing yet. I haven't had the time to unload them to anyone yet, Naruto shrugged. Then turning to Giken, who he noticed had fallen silent as he mumbled to himself, and held the sword loftily in his right hand whilst cupping his chin with his left. So, how do you figure it is capable of channeling chakra, Giken-sensei? He emulated Shiho in fear of incurring the old man's annoyance. As much as he liked the mad scientist, he was as bipolar as it got. One moment he'd keep to himself, completely immersed in his work, the other he'd get worked up over nothing. The sword is lighter than it should be, and the sword has the telltale gleam that indicates the minerals used in forging it were infused with chakra, Giken replied after a long thoughtful growling hum. That made sense to Naruto. He noticed almost immediately the sword had a beckoning gleam to it when he chose it in his bout with Sasaki. How would those ronin have gotten their hands on it though? Naruto asked as he remembered where he had gotten it. They weren't very strong to begin with. Giken hummed to himself for a moment. See these marks? He indicated a three-pronged mark on the base of the sword's metal that vaguely resembled three wolves. That is the sign of Tenten no Kuni's samurai branch settled in the Sanro Mountains. They are known as the Samurai no Hoku Shurdan, I believe. As for how those rogues got their hands on one of these, the most logical inference at this point is that they stole it. You are quite lucky. They don't order these in bulk, as forging blades capable of chakra flow is expensive and more time-consuming than regular blades, so for you to have one, you're pretty lucky, he concluded, placing the sword on his workbench. I'll have to take some measurements to construct a scabbard for it. That will take a while, Naruto nodded. No problem. I'm just glad you're doing it for free. Humph. Giken waved off his gratitude. Consider it an early birthday gift. Naruto's eyes widened. Oh, fuck me. It's nearly my birthday and I haven't even thought about it. Naruto looked to the clock across the room. It was only little over a week till he turned 14. Forgot about your own birthday, did you? Giken observed with an amused cackle. You may want to take the soon-to-be Godame's assistant's advice to heart. If you can hardly remember when it is your birthday, you need some time off. Naruto subconsciously placed a hand on his tanto, hanging at his hip. Yeah. I guess so. It's been a while since I hung out with my friends. Naruto couldn't remember the last time he had an actual day off without having any missions, errands to run, or training. He had turned into a workaholic without even noticing it until now. It was the simplest truth. He had been throwing himself into his career almost non-stop since his promotion. Thinking of it made him realize how unhealthy that actually was. He hadn't even pulled a prank in months. Naruto shook his head. Right, I'll see to it I get some time off. A bit late for that though, considering Shizen had cleared him for active duty only an hour ago. Still no excuse to not at least grab a bite to eat with the guys every now and then. Hell, I still owe Niji a rematch. There's something wrong with your tanto, Uzumaki-san? Shiho asked with a concerned look. His expression had gone blank for a moment. Realizing he was gripping the handle of his tanto, Naruto shook his head quickly. What, no, I'm fine. Thanks. Say, what do you do for fun, Shiho-chan? Naruto asked her, curious whether the female genius ever went out and did something. Apparently not, as she shrugged uncertainly. No surprise there, Naruto thought dryly for a moment. Then he felt guilty, and like an ass for making the presumption, even if it was spot on. She did say she had a tough time making friends when she was younger. He could relate to that. Sure, he was a hell of a lot more outgoing than she was, and at times even shamelessly so, but friends did not come easy to him. He found friendship in Shikamaru, Choji, and Kiba when he was younger, but this ragtag band of friends fell apart over time as they grew older, and it became inappropriate to play ninja or cut class. Hey, Shiho-chan, let's make some time to do something, Naruto suggested a little louder than Gikken, who was now on the other side of the room taking measurements, appreciated. Sorry, Naruto quickly apologized to the old man. But seriously, let's do something, Naruto suggested to Shiho. I haven't seen my friends in a long while. I was thinking of inviting them all to a meal. You should come, Shiho shook her head immediately, but offered no coherent response. No, I couldn't. You know. I'm not good with I'm sorry, I just can't. Come on, Shiho-chan, Naruto said to her. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure my friends will like you. There's no need to be shy, and if it's about money, don't worry, it's my treat. I got paid for an S-ranked mission, so I'll be able to treat everyone, even Choji, and that guy can eat, if you know what I mean. Shiho grew a little less timid, a red tinge on her cheeks. Is Nara-san going to be there? What? Naruto blinked a few times. Then, getting it, his mouth turned O-shaped as it dawned on him. She likes Shikamaru. Who would have thought? She's so shy and timid, but I guess it's only natural for her to be attracted to guys. She is a girl after all, but Shikamaru, of all people? If they had kids, they'd be bone lazy and smart. It took far greater self-control than he was proud of to stop himself from smiling knowingly and nodding at her. Yeah, that cheap sloth never misses out on a free meal. He'll definitely be there. In fact, Naruto dug the hole before he could back out. I'm sure he'll be happy if you come. He thinks you're really great, you know? That was stretching the truth to the breaking point, but it wasn't lying, technically. But no buts, Shiho. You're going. Gikken fell in sternly. Consider it an experiment, if you want to. Yeah, that sounds about right. Go out and experiment in interacting with your peers. Having never even thought of disobeying a direct order, Shiho dared not to resist any longer. Okay, Uzumaki-san, if you'll have me, I'll be glad to tag along. Great. Naruto patted her on the shoulder. You might want to change into something more comfortable when we go though, he told her. He briefly entertained the thought of her going on in her lab coat. She visibly flinched at that, but he had a way with people. You'll be fine. You know, you're really cute, even if you don't think so yourself. Shiho's blush turned her entire face red as she gave an incoherent squeak and charged off to do some work on the far side of the laboratory. Naruto shrugged with a smile and walked over to Gikken, who leaned back from his workbench, just about finished with taking measurements. I'll be able to construct a sword sheath in no time, Gikken answered his curious gaze at the newly drawn sketches of sword sheaths with numbers scribbled next to them. I'll have it sent to you when it's done. In the meantime, though, I need you try something out for me. Gikken smiled deviously, sending an involuntary shiver down the Chunin's back. With a sense of dread, Naruto gave a nod. The last time he did Gikken a favor, he was struck with a cane so many times, he could have sworn he forgot the first year of academy. Okay, sure. Sounds fair, I guess. One moment. Gikken pushed back his swivel chair to his other workbench, where he had been working on another project. With a flare of theatrics, he pulled of the cloth and revealed what he had been working on, a smooth metallic forearm protector. Its metal was light metallic silver and appeared to have been polished thoroughly as it gleamed brighter than his kodachi. What is it? Naruto asked. Gikken's devious grin widened. This is my first project in years, Uzumaki. It's a new piece of equipment I designed for Konoha's ANBU. The scientist held up the contraption with both hands and offered it to Naruto. Try it on, he said with a series of encouraging nods. The metal is of my own design. Feel how light it is? Balanced and deadly, I expect. I haven't got it on yet, old man, Naruto informed with a sweat drop as he carefully held the contraption by the smooth underside and slipped his left hand in it. Whoa! Naruto's eyes widened as he noticed how light the arm guard was despite its appearance. I can barely feel it. Yes. Gikken nodded repeatedly. It is forged from the finest minerals from Koseki no Kuni. Very rare and expensive, but undoubtedly the best for forging weapons. Go on, try it out, Gikken said encouragingly. Naruto looked at the smooth surface of the forearm protector. How? He asked dumbly. Why, channel your chakra into it, of course. Gikken said as though stating the obvious. All right, Naruto agreed with a shrug. Fortunately, his chakra control had improved by leaps and bounds in the past few months, so it was relatively easy to channel it into the arm guard. The results were instantaneous. The silvery metal gleamed brightly for a few seconds before 5 short, jagged and curved blades protruded from the previously smooth surface. 2 Holy fuck! Naruto exclaimed. That is amazing! The protruding blades reflected brightly in his eyes. What is that? Naruto asked, impressed with the invention. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? I told you, didn't I? Gikken rambled with exuberant enthusiasm. This is only a prototype. Feel free to use it. Swing it around. And Naruto did, though at first he felt like an idiot swinging around aimlessly. But once he caught himself in a reflection, he realized the deadliness of the protruding blades on the arm guard. These are supposed to keep you from falling off constructs you can't climb with chakra, right? Like the great walls around the village or a ravine, Naruto added with a sour expression. He remembered how it was seemingly impossible to stick himself to anything that time Jiraiya threw him down a ravine. Yeah, I can see how these could be useful. How does it work in an actual fight though? This seems like an awkward way of fighting someone. Naruto swung his arm for emphasis. Maybe if you backhand someone or… I see, he realized out loud. It's a good way of defending against weapons when you're in a fight. I can definitely imagine that being useful. Precisely. Gikken exclaimed. The older man hobbled off and came back moments later with a wooden baseball bat and a standard issue ninjato in his hands. I need you to defend yourself against these using only the arm guard I have given you. Yeah, like hell I'm going to let you do that, Naruto thought with a dry expression, knowing full well the old man had a tendency to get overexcited. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Poof, perfect, this allows me to make accurate observations. Gikken readily agreed with the usage of the B-ranked Kenjutsu. Naruto's clone took the weapons out of the old man's hand and retreated a safe distance in the spacious room. Giving his clone a nod, the original braced himself as it came running at him, swinging the bat. Crack! With hardly any effort the bat broke as it made contact with the arm guard. Gikken gave an excited, yes, excellent, as he made notes, and Naruto pried the remaining pieces of wood from the protruding metal blades. He gave a nod to his clone, and shortly after deflected an incoming kunai with a swipe of his hand. Just like I had hoped, Gikken claimed. Then the clone came running at the original with the sword held above its head. Naruto stepped back and made another swiping motion with his arm, hooking the blade and pulling it away from his as he countered with a right hook, dispelling the clone in an instant. Poof! Excellent, excellent. Gikken continued to scribble notes down at a speedy rate. Shiho, did you see any of that? Yes, Gikken-sensei, I am making my own notes, Shiho replied from the other side of the testing area. Naruto had almost forgotten she was there. Naruto moved to pull the arm guard off. Okay, it works great. Where can I leave this? He asked as the blades retracted and the arm guard reverted to its smooth surfaced form. On your arm, Gikken replied, looking up from his notepad. Consider it another early birthday gift from Shiho and I. Naruto opened his mouth to protest, but the old man wouldn't have any of it and threw a random device that had been lying around at the blonde. Just take it, Uzumaki. I can easily construct another. Such impudence. Did no one ever teach you to not refuse any gifts? It's rude. Naruto caught the device with ease in his right hand and placed it on a workbench as he approached the scientist, briefly noting it was a newer version of the chakra sensor he had broken only a few weeks ago. Thanks for the gift, old man. Naruto gave a respectful bow of the head, and then with a wink and a smile to Shiho. You guys look busy, so I better get going, Naruto replied as he pulled the arm guard back on and headed towards the exit. See you, Naruto-kun, Shiho called after him. HMH, yes, another time. Oh, Ichiraku Ramen Bar. Naruto pushed aside the high curtains as he entered the small establishment and sat at his usual spot by the counter, greeting Ayam with a grin as he sat down. Hey, Ayam-chan, where's the old man? He asked, noticing Tuchi's absence. Hi, Naruto-kun. Ayam gave a frustrated sigh as she cleaned the counter with a wipe of a cloth. Dad had an accident. Slipped over some spoiled ramen and banged his head pretty badly a few days ago. I sent him home, thinking he would be back to work soon, but it looks like we'll have to contact a doctor or go to the hospital. Ouch, Naruto winced empathically. Well, give him my best. Ayam nodded. Will do. Then she pulled out a notepad and a pen from her smock pocket. So, what will you have today, Naruto-kun? Let's see. Naruto looked at the newly printed menu put on a stand on the counter. What's the inauguration special? He asked her with a curious look. I haven't had that one before. Oh, you know, a special meal Dad thought of with the inauguration festival in mind. He think it'll be good for business, I am informed with a shrug. Clearly, she didn't share her father's optimism on that front, and Naruto couldn't blame her. This wasn't the first time Old Man Tucci came up with a new meal for a special occasion. Those usually never lasted, and he would know, if anyone, considering he ate here most of the time. Inauguration festival? Naruto asked a moment later, having blanked on that for a second. Oh, right. How could I forget? Tsunade Bakon's becoming the Godame. Naruto grinned at Ayam. Sounds like fun. Ayam nodded, but her expression was downcast. Unfortunately, with that not working in the past few days, we haven't made enough money to hire extra staff, so that means I'll probably have to work. Naruto scanned over the meal, noting the inauguration special was the most expensive meal on the menu. Okay, I'll have 6 bowls of the inauguration special. Naruto ordered, pulling out his wallet and counting real bills. Odds were he wasn't going to finish all 6, but he'd be damned if he didn't at least try and help out the girl who had been one of the very, very few people that tolerated his presence growing up. Here, Naruto paid her the real bills, adding a generous tip. When she opened her mouth to protest, Naruto barked at her irritably. Come on, what are you waiting for? I'm hungry! He complained with feigned impatience. Ayam rolled her eyes at him, but he knew she was smiling when she turned around to drop the money in the register. Oh, Konoha Market, Kendo's store for shinobi appliances. Bells ringed as Naruto pushed the door and entered the store, feeling so full he was surprised he fitted through the door. Me and my altruism, Naruto grumbled as he felt his stomach churn with nausea. This was the place he usually went to get his shinobi equipment. The owner sold them for considerably cheaper than the other 2 or 3 stores he had visited before this one. He could afford to go to other store now, but just because he got paid out big time for his A-rank turned S-ranked mission to retrieve Tsunade with Jiraiya, didn't mean he would suddenly stop coming to the same place he had been going for years. The quality of the merchandise was always up to scratch, albeit not as good as he could get, but it was relatively cheap and the shopkeeper didn't give him the good old stink eye whenever he visited him. Back again, Uzumaki? Kendo greeted from behind the counter as the blonde entered the shop with a sweeping gaze around him, taking in all of the latest products. Kendo was a middle-aged man with long graying hair tied up in a ponytail and bangs going down the side of his head. He wore a brown shopkeeper's apron over his simple brown tunic. It's been a while since I last saw you in here. Naruto held up a greeting hand, nodding curtly. Yeah, I've been real busy, old man Kendo. I've been on missions almost nonstop since I got promoted to Chunin. Well, good on you, Kendo nodded with a smile. I saw your fight against that Hyuga kid a while back. You handled yourself a lot better than anyone thought you would, including me. No offense, the shopkeeper added. None taken, Naruto replied, walking down the few aisles of the tiny shop. Selection was minimal, but what he found what he was looking for, kunai and shuriken sets, some polishing oil for his weapons, he picked that up with his tanto and newly acquired kodachi in mind, some explosive tags and paper and ink for his fuinjutsu. The old man had given him some instructions on creating basic seals, but he hadn't gotten very far with it since he studied mostly ninjutsu in his spare time. Though if there was anything he learned from his latest mission, it was that ninjutsu was not the best approach for everything. 3. Sasaki hadn't used anything but kenjutsu against him, and for the most part, had dominated in their fight with ease. Naruto remembered he ought to be finding Lee and spar with the guy. Say what you want about Rock Lee, but the guy was incredibly strong. He was faster and physically stronger than any other genin in Konoha, including Naruto. I wonder if he's recovered from his fight with Gaara, Naruto thought for a moment as he stocked up on sets of kunai. I haven't seen him since the preliminaries. The bells ringed again and a newcomer broke his thoughts. Uzumaki? Tenten appeared doubtful it was actually him. Fair enough, he had long since foregone the hideous orange and blue tracksuit. Plus, his hair had grown and he liked to think he had grown a bit taller. He couldn't blame her for not being able to recognize him instantly. They weren't even that friendly. Well, speak of the devil's teammate, Naruto amended his thoughts. Tenten, right? He wasn't too sure. The last time he saw her, she was getting her ass handed to her by Gaara's sister, Temari. Better not to open dialogue with that line of thought, Naruto thought. You come here too? Tenten asked, an intrigued glance on his bracer that went unnoticed by him. Figures she would, Naruto thought. It was certainly a hell of a lot cheap to get equipment here. Yeah, though it's been a while since I've been here. Naruto browsed the stand in front of him for a moment. So, have you been up to lately? He asked, preferring small talk over silence. Tenten shrugged. Not much, really. I mean, going on missions is a lot different without Lee. It's just not the same. Naruto looked up at this. Without Lee? he repeated curiously. Did the spandex-wearing ball of energy get promoted or something? Naruto decided to ask. What's he doing now? Tenten's expression remained thoughtful for a moment. You've been really busy, haven't you? Naruto nodded to this, waiting for her to continue with increasingly growing curiosity. Lee, he stopped being a shinobi a while ago. Naruto's eyes widened. Did he hear that right? Rock Lee, of all people, giving on something, being a shinobi no less? You're kidding! He exclaimed. Tenten shook her head, prompting him to ask what happened. Sabaku no Gara, Tenten said coldly. He completely crushed Lee's legs. He won't be able to fight ever again. Gara? Naruto said the name for the first in a long while. His voice didn't sound like his own. Gara ended his career? Tenten nodded, her expression softening at the depressing thought. Yeah, she smiled a little, though it looked forced. I heard Tsunade-sama of the Sannin has returned to Konoha. They say she's going to be the Godame Hokage. Maybe she can heal Lee's injuries, but even so, I'm not sure if she will. I mean, it's Tsunade-sama. Don't worry about it, Naruto told her with a reassuring smile. If there was anyone that could help Lee, it would be Tsunade. If she was capable of bringing him back from the verge of death, from a state not even Kyuubi's chakra could heal, then she could help Lee. He just knew it. She might not act like it, but she's a nice lady. I'm sure if we asked her, she'll do her best. You know her? Tenten sounded doubtful, as though she expected he was telling tall tales. Really? Naruto subconsciously touched the Shodai's necklace tucked under his shirt, the memory of how he had won it still fresh in his mind. Yeah, Naruto confirmed confidently. I went with Rasengan on the mission to bring her back to Konoha. She's taken a liking to me, so I think I can convince her to take a look at Lee. Thank you? Tenten took his hand in hers and shook them vigorously, an expression of relief on her face. Thank you so much, Naruto. Do you think you can introduce her to me? I've admired her nearly my entire life. You have? Naruto asked. It was a fresh reminder of the Sannin's reputation across the world. I guess I really should count myself lucky, Naruto thought as he remembered Jiraiya's words to him on their mission. Would it pain you so much to show a little respect? You got any idea what people would give to be my apprentice? Seriously, you're the luckiest kid in Konoha to have me as your master. Naruto gave a shake of his head. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. That would be kind of weird. Why don't you just visit her on your own? She's scary as all hell, but she's nice if you get to know her. Just be polite, and definitely do not ask about her age or call her Anababa. That never goes well. Cold sweat broke down Naruto's face. The beatings she gave him were supposed to be gentle in comparison to what she was capable of dishing out, but really, it was a lot harder than it ought to be to tell the difference between her brand of tough love and aim-to-kill beatings. Tenten looked disappointed for a moment, but nodded nonetheless. Thank you, Naruto. I'm sure Gai-sensei will be ecstatic with the news. What is she like? Tenten had an excited glint in her eye as she got in his face. Naruto took a subconscious step back. Either of them noticed. How can I put this without completely destroying your image for her? Naruto wondered out loud, causing her to smile. You're exaggerating, Tenten claimed. Naruto grinned at her with a shake of his head. Let me put it this way, if alcoholism and violent outbursts were good traits, she'd be the best role model in the world. He couldn't help but smile at Tenten's oblivious expression. I'm kidding. She's great. Lee will be so happy to hear he might have a shot at making a comeback. He's been kind of out of it for a while. He just sits there and doesn't say anything when we visit him, not even to Gai-sensei. Tenten looked once again saddened. Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder and squeezed reassuringly. Everything will be fine, he said to her with such confidence. Lee might as well have already been doing 500 laps around Konoha. Tenten smiled back and nodded. You're right. Lee will be fine. So how's Neji? Naruto asked, changing the subject. Is he still wrapped up in that whole fatalistic bullshit of his? She shook her head with a laugh. No, I think you really got through to him. He's been a lot nicer to us lately. He's even participated in Gai-sensei's ridiculous endeavors to heal Lee. He's also been training a lot with Hayashi-sama lately, the Hyuga clan leader, she elaborated when Naruto gave a curious look. Hinata's dad? He asked. That's the one, Tenten nodded. I think he's going to challenge you to a rematch sometime soon. Naruto grinned at that. That's fine by me. I'd like to see how much he improved. It was a close call the last time I faced him. About done with his shopping, Naruto left Tenten in the aisle by herself and walked over to the shopkeeper, Kendo. Hey, old man, are you interested in widening your selection? Naruto asked as he put his items on the far side counter and placed his sealing scroll before the shopkeeper. I found a few weapons you might be able to sell for a premium price. Kendo gave him an appraising look. Alright then, show me what you've got, Uzumaki. I can't promise you the best deal out there, but I'll give you a fair one. Naruto pulled the scroll open and made half a tiger seal. Kai. The weapons appeared in a neat row laid out in front of the shopkeeper. Spears, daggers, hooked blades, short swords, and a bow and arrow set. I'll take the first reasonable digits you throw at me. Kendo looked at the weapons, picking a few up by random to examine the quality. I'll give you 1100 ryo for all of them, plus a 15% discount on everything you buy now, he added with a nod. I can't do much better than that. Done. Naruto accepted the offer. They shook hands and Kendo opened up the register and counted out several ryo bills. Naruto peered over to see the register was almost empty. The lonesome shopkeeper must have been going through some bad times. Tenten looked over Naruto's shoulder. Hey, I'll give you 1200 for the enter set, Naruto. No can do. Naruto shook his head firmly. We already shook hands, he told the kunoichi. She looked disappointed but quickly shrugged it off nonetheless. Naruto didn't feel guilty whatsoever. He had been coming to Kendo since he was an academy student, so he wasn't about to screw over the man who had been so good to him over the years in terms of offers. The shopkeeper was fair and humble. It was why Naruto liked him so much. They left shop soon after Naruto paid for his items and politely waited for Tenten to finish up ordering several weapons in bulk. He assumed since they were talking he was supposed to wait for her, so he did. Okay, my place is this way, Naruto said as they came up on a divergence in the road. See you later, Tenten. I'll make sure to talk to Tsunade back on Lee. She waved at him as they parted. Later, Naruto, and thanks. Naruto watched her for a moment as she continued on her path down the road, wherever that took her. Oh, Konohagakure no Sato, fragrant leaf tea house. Jiraiya sat opposite Kakashi in the back of the Cumulus tea house, leaned over the table as they in low tones. Their conversation was drowned out by the loud and boisterous atmosphere of the establishment, making it next to impossible for them to be overheard by unwanted eavesdroppers. He mastered the rasengan? That's impressive. Kakashi appeared to be genuinely pleased with the news. How long did it take him? Jiraiya grinned at the question. 3 weeks, give or take, he answered, enjoying Kakashi's lone visible eye widening appreciatively. It took me 3 months with Minato's help, and it took you little over 2. Goes to show he's steadily surpassing us in ninjutsu. He is Sensei's son, Kakashi conceded with a nod. Sharingan no Kakashi knew full well the enormous talent the blonde possessed for ninjutsu. His ability to learn a B-rank kinjutsu in the span of hours and summoning Gamabunta were undeniable feats that backed that up. So, Tsunade-sama is going to officially accept the Godame Hokage position soon? Thanks to Naruto, Jiraiya clarified. He has a way with her, he offhandedly elaborated to the Scarecrow Jonin. The daimyo didn't even bother coming here in person. Instead he sent his delegates to formally vote on her. Jiraiya glanced at a timepiece nearby. They should be about done by now. Tsunade's the perfect candidate, after all. Granddaughter of the Shodai, grandniece to the Naidame, pupil of the Sandame, and one of the Densetsu no Sennin. She's perfect for the job. I agree, Kakashi agreed easily with a nod. I'm just surprised Naruto managed to accomplish so much, learning the Rasengan and convincing her to become the Godame. Jiraiya seemed to agree with him, but didn't comment. Kakashi looked somewhat concerned as he realized something. Naruto has been busy almost non-stop with missions since his promotion. That can't be good. He's going to burn out sooner than later at this rate. I agree, Jiraiya nodded as took a sip from his tiny decorative cup, but it's his decision. He's not the impulsive brat he used to be. Not as bad anyway. He's starting to calm down on his own. I don't want to interfere with that. If he burns out, he burns out. He's been his own man his entire life, and unless it affects his performance, which so far it hasn't, we should let him do as he pleases. We have no right to start telling him what he can and cannot do. We've reneged on that duty too long to start now. Kakashi nodded, conceding to Jiraiya's wisdom. Does he know of the Akatsuki yet? Kakashi asked the Gama Sennin with a serious tone, clearly concerned for his former student. His platoon has been assigned with tracking their movements in the country. Jiraiya drank from tiny teacup, eyeing Kakashi as the copy ninja voiced his other concerns. They have no clue about Akatsuki's objective to collect the Biju, Jiraiya informed the son of Konoha's White Fang. For the time being, all they know is that Akatsuki is an international crime organization, which is true. Though I don't know how long before the mercenaries will be setting up strongholds in Hai no Kuni. Jiraiya gave a dry chuckle, though there wasn't anything amusing about it. Who knows, maybe they already have. Does Tsunade-sama know? Asked Kakashi. Jiraiya nodded and he gave a small smile. Of course she does. She didn't seem to take too kindly to the fact Naruto might be targeted sometime soon. For someone who says she hates kids, she sure has taken a liking to that kid. Jiraiya and Kakashi smiled at the irony. The sage placed his cup down on the table with a serious expression. I'll be gone for a while soon, Kakashi. Jiraiya's smile disappeared completely now as he leaned closer to the copy ninja. There's been talk of several minor countries with shinobi villages are colluding all over the continent. There's a lot of conflicting stories going around, but none of them sound much better than the other. The most consistent rumor I've heard so far is that Mizu no Kuni and Kirigakure are being targeted by an as of yet unnamed alliance. Kiri is the weakest of the Great Five if you don't count Tsunade, but nobody's going to attack Suna on their turf, especially not with winter just around the corner. The heat over day and cold over night will make it impossible to efficiently wage war. They are targeting Kiri because it is the weakest link, having only recently ended the civil war. The new Mizukage is supposed to be powerful, but inexperienced, thus making Mizu the least protected country of the Great Five. Kakashi connected the dots out loud. The Toad Sage nodded at him, appreciative of his deduction skills, which had saved him time explaining. Tsunadeheim knows I will be departing soon. That's why I need you to keep an eye on Naruto till I get back. The white mane legendary shinobi gave a sigh. If worse comes to worse with Akatsuki, I'll have to take Naruto out of the village for a while, so he can learn to control the QB safely? Kakashi inferred. Jiraiya stared at Kakashi with a blank expression for a while. Then, chuckling, he said, Minato wasn't kidding. You are a sharp one. Kakashi smiled at the compliment. How is the Uchiha kid doing? Has Orochimaru's Juinjutsu affected his behavior much lately? Jiraiya inquired as he leaned back into the booth they were sharing. No. The copy ninja shook his head as he leaned back into his booth. He seemed to be distracted for a while when Naruto left, but he's improved a lot lately. It's incredible how much stronger he's become. Though, and Kakashi smiled at this, if what you imply, and I trust your judgment, Naruto has become even stronger, that will likely have an adverse effect on Sasuke when they meet again. At this point, I'm fairly confident he has both an inferiority and superiority complex. He believes he's better than everyone around him, but at the same, feels the constant need to prove he is the best. I like to think he's changing little by little every day, but it appears the mental trauma caused by the massacre is only being exacerbated by Orochimaru's Juinjutsu. How long the Fujihoin I placed on him will last, I can't know for sure. Jiraiya rubbed his chin in thought. The evil sealing method, though sound in theory, was risky to use as a counter against Orochimaru's Juinjutsu as it relied on the subject's willpower not to tap into the cursed seal. That would be tough for anyone, to resist the euphoric power the seal granted, especially for someone like Sasuke, who valued power over anything else, including his comrades. The Uchiha youth would likely throw off the Fujihoin soon, if Kakashi's information was anything to go by. The Fujihoin won't last for long, Jiraiya predicted with a grave tone and expression. Nothing short of mind-enslaving methods will keep him in place, and even then it's doubtful. You have to get through to him somehow, Kakashi, or you will surely lose this one like Hiruzen-sensei lost Orochimaru. Kakashi remained silent for a long moment, eyeing his untouched cup of tea. What do you suggest? The scarecrow shinobi asked the Gama Sennin. I'm anxious in teaching him new jutsu. As soon as I teach him one thing, he demands another. He thinks I am holding him back. Kakashi gave an uncharacteristically down sigh, troubled with the thought of his student defecting. The second I taught him the Chidori, he wanted me to teach him the Raikiri. All in the name of avenging his clan. You're in a tough bind, I get that, Jiraiya acknowledged empathically, but you need to put the kid straight and fast. He needs to find another purpose in life, or else he's going to cause a lot of pain to a lot of people. Not the least of who you. You're right, Jiraiya-sama, Kakashi nodded, placing down his empty cup. Jiraiya blinked a few times. Oh. Later that day, Naruto's apartment. Knock. 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 Coming. Naruto called as he rose from the couch he had been sleeping on. He yawned and stretched his arms as he reached the door and pulled it open. Rei stood on his doorstep and eyed his disheveled appearance with a deadpan expression as Naruto blinked at her a few times as though he forgot her name. Is this a bad time? She asked as Naruto stepped back inside, pulling the door aside to allow her into his apartment. Not really, Naruto yawned, turning back to his living room as Rei closed the door behind her. "What's up?" he asked, stifling another yawn as she sat down on his recliner opposite the couch he was sleeping on. "You're tired," Rei stated the obvious. "You're never tired." Naruto shrugged, rubbing the back of his neck with another yawn. "I didn't get much sleep on the road," Naruto replied. "So, what's up? If it's a mission, consider me to be selectively deaf. I'm way too tired for anything like that. Besides, the old lady told me to take some downtime, so tell Sarugaku to eat it." "No mission," Rei shook her head with the same dry expression. Naruto was slurring to himself, and his eyes were almost completely shut. "Where have you been these past weeks? We've been put at considerable discomfort thanks to you. Sarugaku blew a gasket when he found out you left without notice." "And who is this old lady you're talking about?" Naruto pinched his cheeks and rubbed the dirt from his eyes. "Jiraiya enlisted me for a mission," he yawned loudly. "Yes, the same one you're thinking of," Naruto added when Rei opened her mouth. "We were looking for Tsunade. You're a medic Nin, I assume you know who I'm talking about, right?" "Of course, she is the greatest healer in the world," Rei exclaimed uncharacteristically. "You met her? She's going to be Godame," Naruto replied tiredly. Upon seeing Rei's eyes widened, he gave her a confused look. "What? You went looking for her with Jiraiya-sama?" Rei sounded incredulously. Naruto shrugged. It wasn't as exciting as it sounded considering he nearly got 3 times on the mission. "It wasn't exactly fun," Naruto told her, getting up out of his couch and walking into his kitchen and retrieving 2 bottles of water. "So why are you here? You heard about the inauguration festival?" Rei inquired as she took one of the water bottles. Naruto nodded. "Yeah, I did." "Sounds like fun, don't you think? Are you going with anyone?" Rei asked him with an unreadable expression. Naruto looked thoughtful for a moment, and took a gulp of water for something to do. He briefly entertained the thought of asking out Sakura, purely out of habit, but as he thought about it, he shook his head. He hadn't seen in her in a long while now. Not only would it be weird, he didn't actually think he wanted to go out with her anymore. Sure, she was cute and had her moments, but he just didn't feel the same about her anymore. "I don't know. I haven't really given it any thought," he answered honestly. "Good," Rei replied. Naruto gave her a curious look. "Why is that?" "Because I was hoping you would go with me," Rei half asked and half stated calmly, though she looked a tiny bit embarrassing. Naruto had to appreciate her straightforwardness. Usually, he would have thought, girls would wait to be asked out, but here she was, asking him out instead. A few months ago, he would have been over the moon and jumping around the place like the hyperactive idiot he was. Not to say he wasn't as glad she asked him now, but he knew how to better handle it. "Why didn't I think of that?" Naruto asked out loud, smiling at his teammate. "Why didn't you?" Rei asked him. He shrugged. "Girls don't tend to consider me as dating material," he told her truthfully. "I mean, don't get me wrong, I think you're great and you're very attractive, but I didn't even consider that you would be remotely interested in me. It's just a festival, Naruto," Rei replied dryly, smiling a little at hearing he found her attractive. "Right, well, my answer is yes, definitely yes," Naruto grinned at her. "It'll be fun." Rei smiled at him, and he realized for the first time how beautiful she was. "I'll have to buy an actual hakama or something," Naruto thought, scratching his cheek, a little giddy with the thought of actually having a date. "That can wait though," he announced as he reached for his flak jacket at the end of the couch and throwing it on. "Let's go." "Go where?" Rei asked with a questioning look. Naruto looked at her, blinking a few times. "I just remembered promising to teach you how to summon." "I mean, you are still interested in that, aren't you?" Rei smiled again. "Oh, Cha no Kuni." 2 figures in black, red cloud-patterned cloaks walked side by side down a dirt road in silence. One was significantly taller and muscular than the other, towering over his partner by nearly a full foot. He had a distinctive shark-like appearance, pale blue-gray skin tone, dull blue hair, small, round white eyes, gill-like facial markings under his eyes and sharp triangular teeth. Resting on his shoulder and covered by a thick layer of bandages was a large sword, on which 2 unmoving men were balanced out on. They appeared to be dead. The second figure was significantly shorter and lighter of build. Pale and black, silky hair coming down in jaw-length bangs. Though not as distinctive looking as his partner, the second figure's eyes were permanently set in the highly regarded, fully matured Uchiha's sight, the Sharingan. "What's the score now, Itachi?" asked the taller of the two. Itachi smoothly withdrew a bingo book from within his cloak and calmly flipped past the pages. "With the Hanajiri Kyodai added, our score is now 12 bounties." "Kisame," Not bad, Kisame nodded appreciatively, his sharp teeth set in a perpetual grin. These two didn't exactly live up to their reputation though. Chi, flower ninjutsu? What a pathetic bunch. Itachi appeared not to hear him at first, taking the beautiful countryside of Tea Country, as they walked past several natural-grown flower beds. They rarely do, Kisame. You, of all people, should know this better than anyone. Meh. I blame Kakuzu, Kisame said with a glance over his shoulder to the corpses balanced on his samahata. His guys completely eradicated the entire Hanajiri clan save for these two in mere days. The smoke we saw the other day was probably coming from the remains of their village. Perhaps, Itachi drawled, clearly more interested in the beauty of the environment than his companions complaining. Kisame, I have a favor to ask of you. Kisame looked perplexed. A favor? He repeated, as though he wasn't quite confident he had heard that right. Itachi was usually far too reserved to ask for any favors, but as the young Uchiha had won his respect by proving to be the more skilled of the two, Kisame gave an encouraging nod. Sure. Name it. Oh, Konohagakure, Training Ground 22. Naruto waited patiently as Rei took her time carefully writing her name in the scroll with a brush and ink he provided her with from his Fuinjutsu kit. He looked up to the sky, noting how the sun wouldn't be up for much longer. Okay, let's get started, he said once she was done writing her name in skillful calligraphy. The toughest part to summoning is summoning the boss summon of the king you're trying to summon. I don't know how it goes with other summons, but with the toads, you have to summon the boss and prove your worth. You've seen how big Gamabunta and Gamahiro are, summoning them was tough. It took me forever because my chakra control was as crap as it got, but you're lucky. It's the opposite with you. You don't have a whole lot of chakra, I mean, no offense, but compared to mine, we're comparing a puddle to an ocean. Anyway, getting to the point, though you might not have a lot of chakra, your chakra control sure as hell beats mine, but like I said, this going to be tough, so don't expect to summon anything as big as that thing on your first try. Naruto scratched his head. What the hell was it again? I could have sworn I knew it. Ferret, Rei clarified helpfully. Right, the tube-shaped rat thing, Naruto said simplistically. You won't be able to summon anything that big on your first time, or ever, but we'll jump that bridge when we get there. Let's just try and summon a ferret, the size doesn't matter. Okay, what are the hand seals? Rei asked, looking at him expectantly. Oh, right. You don't know the hand seals yet, Naruto realized. Sorry about that, I'm used to being the student. He chuckled as he slowly went through the hand seals, boar, dog, bird and ram, noting how intently her eyes rested on his hands as she memorized them. Okay, now you. Rei went through the hand seals flawlessly, having memorized the short chain on the first go. Good, Naruto praised her with a grin. Okay, now before you actually place your hand down, you need to make a blood offering. What? Rei looked appalled. Naruto laughed again. It's no big deal, really. He went through the hand seals and bit his thumb, drawing a minuscule line of blood. See? Kuchios no Jutsu. Naruto placed his hand on the ground, forcing a tiny amount of chakra through the technique. Poof! Naruto! Long time no see. Gamakichi greeted friendlily as he appeared between the blonde and his teammate. Whoa, who is the cute one? You're new? He held up his pinky. You move quick, bro. Gamakichi approves. Rei looked at Naruto with another one of her unreadable expression. Naruto scratched the back of his head with a sweat drop. He's talking about my old teammate, Naruto elaborated. Then turning to Gamakichi, he patted the toad on the head. Been a while, Gamakichi. How's your brother, Gamatatsu? He's doing great, thanks for asking. Alright, thanks, Gamakichi. I just summoned you to show my student how it's done. Naruto grinned at Rei, noting her begrudging smile. I'll give you lots of sweets next time, okay? You got it, boss. See ya. Poof. So what did he mean with? Rei held up her pinky finger. An old girlfriend. Naruto shook his head. No, he meant my old teammate. I had a crush on her since we were kids, but she never quite thought the same about me. Naruto noted how he said had without any previous thought. Maybe I am over her. I guess I have been for a while now, he realized. Why not? What? He replied, confused. What do you mean? Rei looked at him with that some unreadable expression again. Why didn't she return your feelings? She repeated. He shrugged. He didn't quite have the answer for that, at least not a clear one. He knew she liked Sasuke, and had liked him for almost as long as he liked her, but a part of him, he now realized, was angry with the rosette for not returning his feelings. I don't know. It's in the past. Right, Ray went through the necessary hand seals. Well, I think you're a nice person. Naruto smiled at her. Thank you? She didn't reply, but instead bit her thumb and placed her palm on the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu. Poof! What the? Where am I? Naruto gave a low whistle as a reasonable-sized ferret appeared. It was 1.5 feet tall, sandy brown-colored ferret with beady eyes appeared. It wore unusual attire, a black waistcoat, a monocle and a small black hat. Kijiri-sama? The ferret faced the opposite direction of Naruto and Ray. Clearly the monocle wasn't doing much good. Yeah, no, he's dead, Naruto stated bluntly. The ferret jumped with a shriek and turned around. Where did you come from? Who summoned me? Speak humans! The ferret demanded. I did, Ray replied. Noticing her for the first time, the ferret's jaw dropped and his eyes widened so much, his monocle dropped. I approve! The ferret screeched, his nostrils flaring lecherously as he jumped up to embrace Ray, his tiny hands making groping motions. Crack! Ray raised her fist as the ferret rolled on the ground in agony. Naruto burst out laughing so loudly he fell on his behind, holding his stomach. Oh, that is so rich! Naruto howled with laughter. His teammate was not amused, and gave him an angry look, which only increased with his poor attempts at stifling his laughter. What is your name? Ray asked the ferret. My name is Shimizu, the ferret replied with more ill-found dignity. I am the liaison of the noblest house of ferrets. You say you summoned me? Ray nodded. That's right. What happened to Kijiri-sama? I don't see him. Dead, Naruto replied in Ray's stead. I killed him. Shimizu looked puzzled for a moment. Ah, too bad. I quite like the man, he wrote fine poetry, Shimizu drawled pompously, scurrying over to the scroll on his hind legs. Ah, such is the way of life. Okay, woman, I approve of you. Shimizu quickly amended. Got ink? It asked Naruto. Naruto looked at the ferret and blinked. Shimizu blinked back, adjusting his monocle in a pompous fashion. For the next 5 minutes Naruto roared with laughter, much to Ray's confusion and Shimizu's annoyance. It took far greater effort than Naruto was proud of to stop, but then again, he doubted anyone with so much as a grain of humor wouldn't have reacted in the same situation. A perverted, pompous-looking, monocle-wearing ferret who he could have sworn looked like a shorter, hairier Jiraiya was just too much not to laugh at. I do say. Are you done? Shimizu adjusted his monocle with an embarrassed flush. Ray facepalmed as Naruto bit his fist to refrain from laughing. Are you done? It was a significant while later, again, he wasn't proud, when Naruto regained his composure and Shimizu dabbed his paw in ink and smeared his signature above Ray's name in the same box on the summoning scroll, ending it with a pretentious flourish. That about does it. Thank you, Shimizu-san, Ray thanked the ferret. What do I have to do now? Now you summon ferrets until you find one that agrees to become your familiar, Nakamura-san, Shimizu informed as he smoothed his fur with a pointed glare at Naruto, who had to bite the inside of his cheek to refrain from outright laughing in the summoned's face. Okay then. Good day. Poof! Well, that went a lot smoother than I thought it would, you know, all things considered, Naruto shrugged, a little light-headed from all the laughing. Now I just need to teach Shikamaru how to summon deer, and that'll be that. Where is he anyway? Naruto asked her. Asuma-sensei, Shikamaru's old sensei, said he was on a mission. Ray nodded. With you gone, we had to interchange on a regular basis with another team. The others are scheduled to return today, I believe, she informed him. They are on an A-ranked mission to Otafukugai with several other teams to capture Akatsuki bankers. Otafukugai? I've been there, Akatsuki? Naruto then asked. Then his mouth took a perfect O shape. Oh right, the international criminal organization we're supposed to tracking in Hai no Kuni. Shit! They went on an A-ranked mission without me? Damn, it wasn't exactly like he hadn't had enough action lately, but still, he would have loved to have been a part of it. Yes, the Niji Shotai is working in tandem with several other platoons. Shikamaru was called upon to lead a team personally. Naruto frowned. He really wished he was a part of that mission. Anything new I should know about Akatsuki? He asked, realizing how Ray must have been feeling the same. Yes, Ray replied. There was talk of a failed ambush by the ANBU. There was a supposed tip-off about the Akatsuki leader's location, but none of the ANBU returned. Though, this took place a week before we were briefed on them. It was only declassified a few days ago, the same day Nara took off. An entire ANBU squad failed to take down the leader? Naruto asked incredulously. That was a tough pill to swallow, The ANBU department was supposed to be compromised out of Konoha's finest, most elite shinobi. Gee! Tsunade Bakon is going to be in a bad mood when she hears about that. Ray looked at him with a thoughtful expression. You've grown close to Tsunade-sama, haven't you? She observed easily. Is she fine with calling you that? He responded with a shrug. He wasn't too sure how to answer that without sounding weird. On one hand, he knew she acknowledged him, and because of that, a part of him had grown fond of him, but on the other hand, she also had a penchant for beating him senseless. Then again, if I'm honest, I usually have it coming to some degree, Naruto mused. I don't know, she treats me like a kid, but she's not too bad. Just don't piss her off. Why would I do that? He promptly turned around and walked off, a hand in parting as he left Ray to her own devices. See ya later, Ray-chan. I thought I told you to stop calling me that. Oh, Market District. Naruto walked down the dirt road as he headed towards the large stadium where the inauguration festival would be held. He hadn't been there in months. He was actually looking forward to see how much it had changed since the inauguration of Tsunade had been announced. Knowing her, she'd probably want a huge bronze replica of herself. Naruto smiled at the thought. Naruto Niken. Coming to a stop, Naruto noticed Konohamaru and his friends running over with his friends, Udan and Moegi. Hey you three, Naruto greeted. Whoa, how long has it been since I saw you guys? Naruto exclaimed as he realized Konohamaru's small, but no less noticeable, growth spurt. You're taller than I remember you two, all of you, Naruto observed, ruffling Konohamaru's hair. You too, Naruto Niken. Konohamaru nodded. Where have you been? Jishin told me you were promoted and that you were out of the village a lot. What did you do? Did you fight a lot of strong guys? Or girls? Moegi added with a sour expression aimed at Konohamaru, which went unnoticed. Naruto grinned at them. He's still quite like these kids, even if he didn't spend all that much time with them lately. I sure did. I met a lot of strong people, Naruto told them. It was scary at times, but it was a lot of fun too. You learned any new jutsu, Naruto Niken? Moegi asked excitedly. Naruto rubbed his chin, feigning to be in deep thought. Well, I guess so. Why, do you want to see a few? Yes, please, Naruto Nizen. Udan nodded, accompanied by Moegi and Konohamaru's fervent nods. As Naruto looked down on their excited faces, he was struck with something. One day soon, I'm going to be a jonin. That means I'll have to take on a team of genin, he realized, with a small smile that mystified the three academy students in front of him. Konohamaru, Moegi, Udan, how would you three like to study ninjutsu a little early? As expected, they were fucking ecstatic. Yes. Do you really mean it, Naruto Niken? Konohamaru asked excitedly whilst Moegi and Udan looked at him expectantly. Naruto had to laugh at their excited cries of joy. Yeah, I can totally see myself as a sensei, Naruto thought with a nod, envisioning himself seated behind a desk in Hokage attire, debriefing three adult versions of Konohamaru, Moegi and Udan. If Jiraiya and the Sandaime before him had raised great shinobi, then so could he, right? Alright, then it's settled. Sometime soon, I'll make some time for us to get started. What will we be doing, Naruto Nizen? Udan asked. Naruto grinned, holding up one finger. We'll start with the most basic step, chakra control. As expected, Konohamaru's expression fell, as did Udan's, whereas Moegi's excited expression remained. Don't underestimate the importance of chakra control. I did, and it came to bite me in the ass big time. Alright. Konohamaru punched the air. When do we start, Naruto Niken? Naruto had to admire his enthusiasm. It was identical to his own. Soon, he answered vaguely, deliberately so as his Konohamaru's rapidly changing expressions were just too amusing. Now, where were you guys headed anyway? We were going to see how far along the inauguration preparations have come, Naruto Nizen, Udan answered, pointing a finger to the stadium where the Chunin exams had been held. Do you want to go and see with us, Naruto Niken? Moegi asked. Naruto shrugged. Sure, why not? The stadium was well underway of being prepared. They could see that as soon as they neared it. On the outside, the dome was plastered with promotional notices and under construction warnings. Naruto was about to turn around when the Konohamaru Corps disregarded the warning notices and ran inside excitedly. Hold on, you three! Naruto jogged after them through the halls as they climbed the stairs and headed to the seating area. Whoa, Naruto breathed as he came to a stop behind them. They were leaning over the safety railings, provided with a perfect view of what goes on. The entire stadium had been revamped into a more spacious and sectional building. A large podium was set up at the far end of the fighting area, Work crews overseen by shinobi were carrying lights and decorations and other items Naruto couldn't quite see from the distance. "Hey, let's take a closer look," Konohamaru announced. Before Naruto could say anything, the young Sarutobi ran down the steps along with his friends and reached the center of the stadium, where only months ago, Naruto had defeated Niji. Naruto sighed. "I guess this is what Kakashi-sensei had to deal with," he noted, fully aware of how Konohamaru was pretty much a carbon copy of himself, personality-wise. "Come on, Konohamaru, you shouldn't be down there," Naruto called after them. Then Naruto noticed something in the corner of his eye. In the distance, he saw a cloaked figure run over the edges of the stadium's open corners, seemingly going through a string of hand seals. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Konohamaru! The name had barely left his mouth when suddenly a series of loud explosions went off all over the building's site. Boom! Boom! Shit! Naruto jumped over the safety railings and ran over to the three as the open ceiling began to fall down in giant chunks. "Damn it!" Naruto shouted as he ran faster than he had ever done before, pumping chakra through his legs. Naruto heard screams resounding all over the place. As he neared the Konohamaru core, the largest piece of ceiling yet came crashing down on them. Boom!